special surprise for millions of seniors, SSDI recipients, survivors, and SSI beneficiaries. A surprise that could bring not just financial relief, but emotional peace of mind as well. Would you be interested in learning more? For many of us, especially as we get older, money worries can keep us up at night. We lie in bed wondering if we'll have enough to cover our medications, our rent, our groceries. We stress about unexpected expenses that could throw our carefully planned budgets into chaos. But what if October could bring some of that stress relief? Picture this. It's the beginning of October, and you wake up to find not one, but potentially multiple payments arriving in your bank account throughout the month. Payments that you've earned through decades of hard work. Payments that represent not just money, but security, dignity, and peace of mind. You might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do I know if I qualify for these payments? How do I know when to expect them? And most importantly, how can I make sure I don't miss out on money that's rightfully mine? These are excellent questions, and today we're going to answer all of them. We're going to walk through each payment date in October 2024, explain who qualifies for each payment, and share some valuable insights to help you not just receive your payments, but manage them in a way that brings you true financial peace. But first, let's acknowledge something important. Living on a fixed income isn't always easy. Every month, you have to make careful decisions about how to stretch your dollars to cover all your needs. You might have to choose between paying for prescriptions or buying groceries, between fixing your car or paying your utility bill. These are tough choices that no one should have to make, especially after a lifetime of hard work. That's why understanding your Social Security payment schedule is so important. It's not just about knowing when money will arrive in your account. It's about having the information you need to plan, to budget, and to make those difficult choices a little bit easier. Now, I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking up on October 1st and seeing your SSI payment in your account. Then, just 2 days later, on October 3rd, seeing another payment arrive. And then, depending on when you were born, receiving additional payments throughout the month. How would that make you feel? Relieved, secure, less anxious about your finances. For millions of Americans, this is exactly what October 2024 has in store. But here's the thing. Many people don't know about all these payment dates. They miss out on money that's rightfully theirs simply because they weren't aware of when to expect it. Today, we're going to change that. Today, we're going to empower you with knowledge. Knowledge about when to expect your payments, how to ensure you receive them, and how to manage them in a way that brings you peace of mind. Because you deserve more than just financial security. You deserve emotional security as well. So, are you ready to discover the complete October payment schedule? Are you prepared to take control of your finances and reduce your stress and anxiety? Great, because we're about to embark on a journey that will not only inform you, but hopefully bring you some much-needed peace of mind. Let's begin with the first payment date of October. On October 1st, which is the first Wednesday of the month, all SSI beneficiaries will receive their October payment. For many of you, this payment is a lifeline. It helps cover your most basic needs, food, housing, medical care. It's the foundation of your monthly budget, the payment you rely on to get through the month. I know that waiting for this payment can be stressful. As the end of September approaches, you might find yourself worrying about whether the payment will arrive on time, whether it will be enough to cover your expenses. But take comfort in knowing that this payment is reliable, it's predictable, and it's coming on October 1st without fail. Now, just 2 days later, on October 3rd, something special happens. If you started receiving Social Security benefits before May 1997, or if you received both Social Security and SSI benefits, you'll get your Social Security payment on this date. That's right, October 3rd is your payment day. For those of you who receive both types of benefits, this means 2 payments in the first 3 days of October. Imagine that. 2 payments to start your month. That can bring such a sense of relief, can't it? It can ease those financial worries and give you a cushion to work with as you plan your month. I want you to take a moment to acknowledge what these payments represent. They're not just numbers in a bank account. They're a recognition of your lifetime of hard work. They're a testament to your contributions to our society. And they're a way for our country to say thank you for everything you've done. Now, let's move on to the payment dates based on birth dates. These are equally important, so please pay close attention to see which date applies to you. If your birthday falls between the 1st and 10th of the month, you'll receive your Social Security payment on October 9th. That's the second Wednesday of the month. This mid-month payment can be a welcome boost, helping you cover any expenses that might have come up since the beginning of the month. For those whose birthdays fall between the 11th and 20th of the month, your payment date is October 16th. That's the third Wednesday of the month. Think of this as a mid-month check-in, a reminder that the system is working for you, that your benefits are coming as promised. And finally, if your birthday falls between the 21st and 31st of the month, you'll receive your payment on October 23rd. That's the fourth Wednesday of the month. As we approach the end of October, this payment helps ensure you have what you need to finish the month strong. But we're not done yet. There's one more very important date you need to know about. On October 31st, which is Halloween, you'll receive your November SSI payment early. This is because November 1st falls on a Saturday this year, so the payment is sent on the last business day before the 1st. This early payment can be both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, it's wonderful to receive your money early. It can give you a head start on November planning. On the other hand, it's important to remember that this payment is intended for November expenses, not October. Budgeting wisely will help ensure this payment lasts through the coming month. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about what to do if you don't receive your payment on the expected date. First, try not to panic. I know that's easier said than done. When you're counting on that money, any delay can cause anxiety. But remember that sometimes there can be processing delays. The Social Security Administration recommends waiting 3 additional mailing days before contacting them. During that time, check with your bank first. Sometimes the issue is on their end. If your bank confirms they haven't received the payment, then it's time to contact the Social Security Administration at 1-800-772-1213. Now, let's gently go through these important dates one more time. I want you to really absorb this information, to let it sink in, so you can approach October with confidence and peace of mind. October 1st, the first Wednesday of the month when all SSI beneficiaries receive their October payment. This payment is more than just money. It's security, it's stability, it's the foundation of your monthly budget. You've earned this through years of hard work and contribution to our society. October 3rd, the Friday after the SSI payment, when those who started receiving Social Security before May 1997, or those who received both Social Security and SSI, get their Social Security payment. For many of you, this means 2 payments in the first 3 days. What a wonderful way to start October with a sense of financial security. October 9th, the second Wednesday of the month for those with birthdays between the 1st and 10th. This payment is a recognition of your lifetime of work, a reminder that your contributions haven't been forgotten. October 16th, the third Wednesday of the month for those with birthdays between the 11th and 20th. Think of this as a mid-month gift, a boost to help you navigate any challenges that might arise. October 23rd, the fourth Wednesday of the month for those with birthdays between the 21st and 31st. As we approach the end of October, this payment ensures you have what you need to finish the month with dignity. And finally, October 31st, Halloween, when you'll receive your November SSI payment early. This early arrival can give you a head start on November planning, helping you approach the coming month with confidence. I know that living on a fixed income can be challenging. There might be days when you feel anxious about money, when you worry about stretching your dollars to cover all your needs. These feelings are completely normal, and it's okay to acknowledge them. But here's something I want you to remember. You are not alone. Millions of Americans are in the same situation, relying on these same payments to get by. And more importantly, you've earned these benefits. They're not a handout. They're a return on your lifetime of hard work and contributions. If you're feeling overwhelmed, please know that there are resources available to help. The Social Security Administration offers assistance for beneficiaries who need help managing their money. There are also community organizations, senior centers, and financial counselors who can provide support and guidance. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. Whether it's a family member, a friend, or a professional, having someone to talk to about your financial concerns can make a world of difference. You don't have to carry this burden alone. As we conclude, I want you to take a deep breath and feel a sense of calm. You now know exactly when to expect your payments in October. You have the information you need to plan your month with confidence. And most importantly, you know that you're not alone in this journey. Your Social Security benefits are a testament to your resilience, your hard work, and your contributions to our society. They represent a lifetime of service, of dedication, of showing up day after day to do your part. You deserve this support, and you deserve to live your retirement years with dignity, security, and peace of mind. So mark those dates on your calendar, set reminders if you need to, and know that each payment is a well-deserved recognition of your lifetime of hard work. You've earned this, and you deserve to enjoy your golden years with the financial and emotional security you've worked so hard.
For millions of Americans across this country, October brings something extraordinary, something that hasn't happened in years, something that could change everything for households struggling to make ends meet. This October, millions will receive not one, but two Social Security or SSI payments. Yes, you heard that right, double payments in a single month, creating a rare moment of financial breathing room for those who need it most. What makes this moment so significant is the timing. Coming as it does before the holiday season, this double payment provides a crucial buffer against the increased expenses that many families face at the end of the year. It's a chance to catch up on bills, build a small emergency fund, or address long postponed needs. Let's be clear about what's happening and why. This isn't a permanent increase in benefits. It's not a new government program. It's simply a quirk in the calendar that will result in many beneficiaries receiving two payments in October instead of the usual one. But for those living on fixed incomes, this temporary boost can make all the difference. Consider the reality for many beneficiaries today. Inflation continues to press against household budgets, with food, energy, and healthcare costs rising faster than wages. The most recent Consumer Price Index update shows that these essential expenses are outpacing general wage growth. While the Social Security cost of living adjustment announced earlier in the year was significant for many, it has not been enough to balance the rising bills. This is why the unique alignment of the October double payment stands out. It is not a permanent change, but it is a timely lifeline that helps stabilize finances before the holiday season, when expenses often climb even higher. Consider Maria, a 72-year-old veteran in Florida, whose VA benefits amount to $1,600 monthly. The October schedule means breathing room to pay rent and still set aside a little for rising insurance premiums. For Robert and Linda, a retired couple in Ohio living on a combined monthly benefit of $2,400, the additional deposit could mean buying oil for the furnace before winter sets in. For Jessica, a single mother in Texas relying on $1,200 from SSDI, the double payment ensures that both groceries and medical prescriptions can be covered without borrowing. These stories represent millions of households nationwide, all tied together by the reality that government deposits determine the rhythm of daily survival. For many households, this is not simply an announcement buried in government paperwork. It is the difference between worrying about whether the refrigerator will stay full or finally being able to cover an overdue utility bill.
Big news is coming out of Social Security, and I mean really big news. We're not talking about rumors or proposals today. We're talking about a major, permanent increase to benefits that is officially happening right now. We're going to break down exactly what this means for millions of you.
So, let's get right to it. You've probably been hearing the buzz, right? Chatter about a Social Security increase? Well, today we're going to cut through all the noise and tell you what's actually going on, because this is one of the biggest financial updates for retirees in decades.
And let me be perfectly clear. This is not a drill. It's not a proposal. It is real. It is a permanent change to your benefits, and the process is already in motion. We're going to get into exactly how this works, who gets it, and what the numbers look like.
All right, so let's get into the details, the numbers behind this huge change. And listen, this isn't just your standard cost of living adjustment. No, this is a significant, lifelong boost to your monthly income. And it even includes a retroactive payment to make things right. Here's the number you really need to see. On average, we're looking at a permanent increase of about $360 a month. And I gotta stress that word, permanent. This isn't a temporary bonus. It's a structural change to your benefit calculation for life. That adds up to over $4,300 extra per year, every single year.
And that's not all. On top of that monthly raise, there's also a one-time retroactive payment. The average for this lump sum is around $6,710. This is designed to pay you back to compensate for all those years of reduced benefits.
You know, it's so important to understand what this money really is. It's not some kind of government handout or a bonus. Think of it as a correction. This is money you earned, money you were always entitled to that is finally being restored. It's just making things right.
So, the big question is, who exactly gets this, and why is this happening now? Let's break down who qualifies for this incredible financial boost and the long-standing problem that's finally being fixed.
This change is specifically for our public servants. You know who you are. If you dedicated your life to being a teacher, a police officer, a firefighter, a postal worker, or any other kind of state or federal employee, this is for you. For decades, you are the exact people who have been frankly unfairly penalized by the old rules. So what was the problem? Well, it all comes down to two really unfair rules: the windfall elimination provision, or WEP, and the government pension offset, the GPO. The brand new Social Security Fairness Act has finally repealed these. For years, these rules have been slashing the Social Security benefits of public workers just because they also earned a pension. Getting rid of them is, well, it's monumental. And let me tell you, this is not some small group of people. The Social Security Administration itself says that over 3.2 million people were being hit by these rules. That's 3.2 million beneficiaries who are now finally in the process of seeing their benefits corrected to the full amount they actually earned.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the logistics. You get the what and the why, so now let's cover the how and the when. How is this money actually going to show up? And what, if anything, do you need to do?
Okay, this is my favorite part. What do you have to do? Absolutely nothing. I'm serious. You don't have to fill out a single form. You don't have to make a phone call. You don't have to wait in any lines. The whole thing is completely automatic. The Social Security Administration is already doing all the work behind the scenes. Your only job? Just keep an eye on your My Social Security portal online and then expect that bigger payment to hit your bank account on your normal payday. It's that easy.
Of course, the next question is always, will this extra money mess up my other benefits? And the answer, thankfully, is a big resounding no. For most of you, these payments are completely tax-free, they will not make your Medicare premiums go up, and, this is a big one, this new income won't count against things like SNAP or housing assistance for at least a full year, so you get to keep what you gain.
And check this out, because this is the gift that keeps on giving. Right now, your annual cost of living adjustment, that COLA, is applied to your lower, reduced benefit amount, but with this change, all your future COLAs will be calculated on top of your new, permanently higher base benefit. It's like compound interest for your retirement. That $360 raise today means every single future raise you get will also be bigger.
Now, you know what happens when there's good news about money for seniors, right? The scammers come out of the woodwork. So we have to talk about how to protect yourself, because getting this money is one thing, keeping it is just as important.
I need you to burn this into your memory. This is the single most important rule. The Social Security Administration will never, ever, ever ask you to pay money to get your own benefits. They're not going to call, they're not going to text, they're not going to ask for gift cards or wire transfers. Your benefits are yours, period. No fees attached.
So please, watch out for these red flags. If anyone calls out of the blue asking for your Social Security number, scam. If they demand you pay them with a Target gift card, scam. If they threaten to cut off your benefits if you don't do what they say, total scam. And if they promise they can get you your money faster for a small fee, you guessed it, it's a scam. Just hang up the phone, delete the text. Protect yourself.
Okay, we've gone through all the numbers, the rules, and the warnings. So let's bring it all home and talk about what this really means for you. Not just in your wallet, but in your actual everyday life.
Because you know what? This is so much more than a check. For the millions of you who served our communities and then felt penalized for it, this is about respect. It's the system finally saying, we see you, we value what you did, and we're making it right. This is about restoring the dignity you earned over a lifetime of hard work.
And let's get real about what an extra $360 a month really does. That's the difference between affording your prescriptions or not. It's putting healthy food on the table without having to worry. It's finally paying off that credit card that's been hanging over your head. It's having a little cushion for when the car inevitably breaks down. But more than anything, it's just being able to breathe a little easier.
So, as we wrap this up, think about this. The Social Security Fairness Act corrected a major injustice that went on for far too long. It proves that big, meaningful change is possible. So the question is, what's next? What's the next big, fair change the Social Security system needs to make to truly take care of every American in retirement?
You've probably seen it all over social media, these incredible claims about a massive Social Security back payment.
Well, today we're going to break down every single detail from those viral reports to figure out what is really going on. Let's separate the facts from the fiction.
All right, let's jump right in with the number that's got everyone talking, $6,710. Now, according to the sources we've looked at, this is the claimed average one-time back payment. The reports say for some people it's less, but for a lot of folks, it could be even more. It's a number that'll make anyone stop and pay attention.
And get this, the scale of this whole claimed program is just staggering. The reports are saying that over $15 billion have already been paid out, with another $6 billion supposedly in the pipeline right now. If that were true, we'd be talking about a massive financial event, a real lifeline for millions of people.
So what's the deal here? Where are these huge numbers even coming from? And what's the story they're telling about the supposed payout? Let's dig into the heart of the claims being made.
Okay, so the sources making this claim are really clear about what this money isn't. They say, look, this is not your regular annual cost of living adjustment, it's not some kind of bonus, and it's definitely not a stimulus check. They describe it as a one-time retroactive back payment, meant to fix years of underpayments for people who've been affected by what they call unfair rules.
So what's supposedly the engine behind all this? Well, the sources all point to one piece of legislation, the Social Security Fairness Act. The claim is that it was passed and signed into law on January 5th, which kicked this whole thing off. Now, this is really important. Official congressional records show this bill has not actually been passed into law. But just so we can understand the rumor, let's look at what the bill would do if it ever passed.
The first huge change this act would make is getting rid of the windfall elimination provision, or WEP. For decades, this rule has cut the Social Security benefits for millions of public servants. We're talking about people like teachers, firefighters, just because they also earned a pension from their public service job. If the act passed, it would scrap that rule completely.
And the second piece of the puzzle is the Government Pension Offset, or GPO. The act also proposes to get rid of this rule, which is similar to WEP, but slashes spousal or survivor benefits for people who have their own government pension. So by repealing both WEP and GPO, the Fairness Act aims to deliver what its supporters call financial justice.
This brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Who would actually get this money if these claims were true? This is the part everybody really wants to know.
Well, according to the reports, if you're getting Social Security, SSDI, or SSI, and your benefits were hit by WEP or GPO in the past, you'd be on the list. They say this covers about 3.2 million people, a lot of whom are retired public sector workers. And here's the key part of the claim. The whole process is supposedly automatic. No forms to fill out, no applications to send in.
Understanding the nuts and bolts of the claim is pretty important, so let's walk through exactly how these payments are supposedly being calculated, processed, and sent out according to these sources.
So here's why the claimed payment is so big. The story goes that the law is retroactive. They say the processing is happening right now in different phases because it has to be done manually. These viral reports even mention a deadline to get all the payments out by the end of this month. But, and this is a big but, there has been absolutely no official confirmation of any of this from the Social Security Administration.
This little chart shows exactly how the math behind the rumor works. The sources say that getting rid of WEP and GPO would lead to a permanent monthly boost in benefits. On average, they claim, about $360 a month. So you take that boost and you multiply it over a hypothetical retroactive period and bam! You land right at that big back payment number. So the claim isn't just about a one-time check, it's about getting back pay for a permanent increase.
How would the money actually get to you? Well, it would all depend on how you're already set up with the SSA. If you've got direct deposit, that would be the fastest way. If you use a Direct Express card, the money would just be loaded on there automatically. For anyone who still gets paper checks, that would take longer showing up in the mail. These are just the standard ways the SSA pays out benefits.
Okay, now we need to cover some really crucial details that are included in these reports. It's so important to understand these points, especially the warnings, so you can protect yourself and your money.
First and foremost, the sources say this over and over again, this supposed retroactive payment would be 100% tax-free. It would not count as taxable income.
Another major point they make is that this payment wouldn't mess with your eligibility for other government programs. That means things like SNAP, Medicaid, or housing assistance supposedly would not be reduced.
Okay, listen up, because this is probably the most important thing to hear today. Anytime there's talk about big money payouts, the scammers come out of the woodwork. The Social Security Administration will never, ever call you, email you, or text you asking for your personal information to release a payment. If anyone contacts you asking for your info or for money to get this payment, it is a scam. Just hang up the phone and report it.
A few other important details from the sources. They claim these payments would be safe from most garnishments, and that your Medicare benefits wouldn't change at all. They also say you might get an official letter from the SSA, and that an appeals process would be available.
Whew! Okay, we've gone over a ton of information. So with all of this in mind, what is the single most important action you can actually take right now?
The advice is actually really simple and consistent across the board. Log in to your official My Social Security account at ssa.gov. That is it. Once you're logged in, just check two things. First, take a look at your payment history for any new or unexpected deposits. Second, just double-check that your mailing address and your direct deposit info are correct. Honestly, this is just good practice to do anyway.
This quote really gets to the core promise of these rumors, that this is all supposed to happen automatically. But here's the reality check. Since the legislation has not passed, these payments are not being processed. So the only thing you can and should do is make sure your official info is correct with the SSA. That way, if any real changes happen in the future, you'll be ready.
You know, this whole situation, whether it's a rumor or not, it really taps into a much bigger conversation. It's about financial breathing room and the hope for a fair system, which is exactly why these kinds of claims can spread like wildfire. And it leaves us with a final question to think about. Beyond any one-time check, what's the most important factor for your own long-term financial peace of mind?
Today, we're diving deep into what could be one of the biggest changes to Social Security we've seen in years. We're talking about a permanent, honest-to-goodness increase in your monthly benefits. You might have heard whispers about a big lump sum payment, but believe me, that is not the whole story. It's really just the beginning. Look at this number, $6,710. This is the average one-time retroactive payment that's at the heart of this whole proposal. Now, for some people, it could be more. For others, maybe a little less. But this is the kind of money that represents a correction that many feel is long, long overdue. And like I said, it would just be the start. So that's the real question, isn't it? Could a payment of that size make a difference for you? And what if I told you the plan is for that big check to be followed by a permanent raise every single month? Let's break down exactly what's being proposed, who would get it, and how this fix could literally change everything for millions of retirees. All right, to really understand why this money is even on the table, we have to take a step back. This isn't some bonus or a stimulus check. No, this is all about correcting what so many people see as a fundamental unfairness that's been baked into the Social Security system for way too long. You see it for decades. Two very specific and frankly very confusing rules have been slashing the earned benefits of public servants. Just imagine working your entire life, paying into the system, and then when you're finally ready to retire, you find out you're not going to get what you thought you earned. For millions of Americans, that's been their reality. So let's get into the weeds a little bit. The culprits are these two provisions, the windfall elimination provision, or WEP, and the government pension offset, GPO. WEP cuts into your own hard-earned benefits, and GPO, that one reduces the spousal or survivor benefits you were counting on. Now, the original idea was to stop double dipping, but critics have been saying for years that they just go too far and unfairly punish people for a career in public service. And who are we really talking about here? Well, we're talking about the very backbone of our communities. We're talking about teachers, police officers, firefighters, the people who run toward danger, not away from it. Postal workers, federal and state employees. Millions of dedicated people who were told that because of their service, they were somehow less deserving of the Social Security benefits they also paid for. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? This gets right to the heart of the matter. This isn't about giving anyone a handout. It's about restoring money that people feel they rightfully earned. It's about the basic promise of Social Security. You pay in, and it'll be there for you. For these public servants, that promise feels broken. And that's exactly what this new proposal is trying to fix. So, how exactly would this fix work? Well, the proposal is really powerful because it has two parts. One part to make up for the past, and a second, even more important part to secure your future. You've got to understand both of them. The whole thing is centered on a piece of legislation called the Social Security Fairness Act. If this becomes law, it wouldn't just tinker with the old rules, it would get rid of them completely. The goal is to wipe WEP and GPO right off the books for good. And this is where it gets really good. The plan creates two key payments. First, that retroactive lump sum we talked about. averaging around $6,700 to cover what you were underpaid in the past. But here's the real story, the long-term solution, a permanent monthly raise averaging about $360 that gets added to your benefits every single month for the rest of your life. And to really get a sense of how big of a deal this is, the proposal calls for an estimated $17 billion in retroactive payments. This isn't some small adjustment. We're talking about one of the largest financial corrections for retirees in recent memory, affecting more than 3.2 million people. I really want to hammer this point home because it's the most important takeaway. The lump sum payment would be justice for the past. But that permanent monthly raise, that's security for your future. It's not a temporary boost. It's a fundamental, permanent change to how your benefit is calculated from now on. Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's talk numbers and what this would actually mean for your budget, for your day-to-day life. This is where you can really see the impact and start to think about what this means for your financial planning. So $360 a month, that's the average. And you know, for so many people, that's the difference between just scraping by and actually having a little breathing room. That's money for groceries, for prescriptions, for keeping the heat on in the winter, or maybe finally paying off a bill that's been hanging over your head. And when you zoom out and look at the whole year, the numbers get even more powerful. An extra $360 a month is $4,320 more per year. And that's every year for the rest of your life. Over a decade, that's more than $43,000 in extra income. This isn't a small change. For many, it would be a true lifeline. Now, this is a question I see all the time, and it's a really smart one. People wonder, okay, if I get this new raise, does that mean I don't get my normal cost of living adjustment, my COLA? Let's clear that up right now. The answer is a big, resounding no. It doesn't negatively affect your CLA. In fact, it makes your future CLAs even bigger. See, future COLA increases would be applied to your new higher base benefit. Think about it. A 3% COLA on an $1,800 benefit is $54, but a 3% COLA on your new higher benefit of $2,160, that's almost $65. Over time, that difference really starts to compound and makes your benefits grow even faster. It's a win on top of a win. All right, now for the other huge money question on everyone's mind. What about Uncle Sam? Is he going to be taking a slice of this new income? It's a major concern, and rightly so, especially when you're on a fixed income. And here's some more fantastic news from the proposal. For the vast majority of people receiving Social Security, this new money would likely be completely tax-free. Your benefits only become taxable once your total income goes over certain thresholds, which you can see right here. Since most beneficiaries fall below these limits, those new payments would be all yours to keep. And this is so important. The proposal includes some really strong protections for your other benefits. The whole plan is designed to help you, not hurt you. So this new income wouldn't count against you for things like SNAP or Medicaid for at least a year. And it also wouldn't jack up your Medicare premiums.
For millions of Americans across this country, October brings something extraordinary, something that hasn't happened in years, something that could change everything for households struggling to make ends meet. This October, millions will receive not one, but 2 Social Security or SSI payments. Yes, you heard that right, double payments in a single month, creating a rare moment of financial breathing room for those who need it most. What makes this moment so significant is the timing. Coming as it does before the holiday season, this double payment provides a crucial buffer against the increased expenses that many families face at the end of the year. It's a chance to catch up on bills, build a small emergency fund, or address long postponed needs. Let's be clear about what's happening and why. This isn't a permanent increase in benefits. It's not a new government program. It's simply a quirk in the calendar that will result in many beneficiaries receiving 2 payments in October instead of the usual one. But for those living on fixed incomes, this temporary boost can make all the difference. Consider the reality for many beneficiaries today. Inflation continues to press against household budgets, with food, energy, and healthcare costs rising faster than wages. The most recent Consumer Price Index update shows that these essential expenses are outpacing general wage growth. While the Social Security cost of living adjustment announced earlier in the year was significant for many, it has not been enough to balance the rising bills. This is why the unique alignment of the October double payment stands out. It is not a permanent change, but it is a timely lifeline that helps stabilize finances before the holiday season, when expenses often climb even higher. Consider Maria, a 72-year-old veteran in Florida, whose VA benefits amount to $1,600 monthly. The October schedule means breathing room to pay rent and still set aside a little for rising insurance premiums. For Robert and Linda, a retired couple in Ohio living on a combined monthly benefit of $2,400, the additional deposit could mean buying oil for the furnace before winter sets in. For Jessica, a single mother in Texas relying on $1,200 from SSDI, the double payment ensures that both groceries and medical prescriptions can be covered without borrowing. These stories represent millions of households nationwide, all tied together by the reality that government deposits determine the rhythm of daily survival. For many households, this is not simply an announcement buried in government paperwork. It is the difference between worrying about whether the refrigerator will stay full or finally being able to cover an overdue utility bill. It's the difference between choosing which medication to skip and being able to fill all prescriptions. It's the difference between anxiety and peace of mind. Federal officials have emphasized that these payments will be automatic. No additional forms, applications, or verification steps are required. The deposits will arrive directly into the bank accounts or prepaid debit cards already tied to beneficiaries. That assurance brings relief to seniors who worry about scams because the Social Security Administration and the Department of Veterans Affairs never demand personal banking details by phone or email. The money will simply appear on the official dates, and beneficiaries only need to keep track of their normal schedules. This October's benefit pattern is a reminder of how fragile yet vital these lifelines are. It underscores the importance of staying informed, not only about monthly schedules but also about larger policy changes that could affect eligibility, future costs of living adjustments, and even how payments are taxed. For millions of Americans who have worked, contributed, and served, these benefits represent more than just numbers on a page. They represent dignity, security, and the ability to maintain independence. Staying connected to these updates ensures that no one is left in the dark when critical changes are announced. That is why it is important to stay engaged with reliable sources of information, share updates with family and friends who might miss them, and remain proactive in protecting both your benefits and your household budget. The phrase "double the benefits" does not mean that checks will permanently double, but rather that certain eligible groups will receive both their regular scheduled payment and an additional deposit that falls within the same month. This overlap is what creates the impression of double benefits, and for seniors who live on fixed incomes, the impact will be felt immediately. This October, millions of Americans who depend on Social Security benefits are watching closely for this development that could temporarily double their payments. The Social Security Administration, in response to new federal budget allocations and adjustments connected to inflationary pressure, has confirmed this unique payment schedule that will bring added relief to retirees, disabled workers, veterans, and individuals receiving supplemental security income. The impact of this double payment extends beyond individual households. When seniors have more financial stability, local economies benefit as well. That extra money might be spent at local grocery stores, pharmacies, or repair services, creating a ripple effect that strengthens communities. Yet it's important to remember that this double payment is temporary. November will return to the normal schedule, with beneficiaries receiving only their regular payment. This underscores the importance of using this opportunity wisely, whether that means paying down debt, building savings, or addressing essential needs. For those receiving this double payment, financial advisors recommend planning carefully. While the temptation might be to make a large purchase or splurge on something special, the reality is that most beneficiaries will need to stretch this extra money to cover ongoing expenses. Some practical suggestions include setting aside money for upcoming winter heating costs, catching up on any medical procedures that have been delayed, or addressing home maintenance issues before they become more serious problems. Others might choose to build an emergency fund or pay down high-interest debt. Whatever the choice, the key is intentionality. This double payment represents a rare opportunity to improve financial stability, not just for the short term, but potentially for months to come. As October unfolds, millions of Americans will watch their bank accounts with a mixture of hope and relief. For some, it will mean the difference between choosing which bills to pay and being able to pay them all. For others, it will mean finally addressing long-neglected health needs. For still others, It will simply mean a few nights of peaceful sleep without financial worry. These are the stories behind the statistics, the human impact of policy decisions and economic realities. They remind us that behind every benefit payment is a person, a family, a community of individuals who have contributed to our society and now depend on these benefits for their basic needs and dignity. This October's double payment is more than just an anomaly in the payment schedule. It's a recognition of the challenges faced by millions of Americans. It's a timely intervention in a time of economic uncertainty. And for many, it's a lifeline that brings both financial relief and emotional reassurance. Now, let's get to the specific dates you need to mark on your calendar. For individuals receiving supplemental security income, the first deposit is scheduled for Wednesday, October 1st. The second comes on Thursday, October 31st. For Social Security retirement and disability beneficiaries, payments will follow the usual pattern tied to birthdays. Those born between the 1st and 10th of any month will see their direct deposits on Wednesday, October 9th. Those with birthdays between the 11th and 20th will be paid on Wednesday, October 15th. Finally, those born between the 21st and 31st can expect their payment on Wednesday, October 22nd. Veterans receiving VA benefits will see their regular payment on Thursday, October 2nd. Remember, these payments will be automatic. No action is required on your part. The money will simply appear in your account on the scheduled dates. Every payment date matters, every adjustment carries weight. And in months like October, when two payments align, it can truly feel like a rare but necessary moment of breathing.
For millions of Americans across this country, October brings something extraordinary, something that hasn't happened in years, something that could change everything for households struggling to make ends meet. This October, millions will receive not one, but two Social Security or SSI payments. Yes, you heard that right. Double payments in a single month, creating a rare moment of financial breathing room for those who need it most. What makes this moment so significant is the timing. Coming as it does before the holiday season, this double payment provides a crucial buffer against the increased expenses that many families face at the end of the year. It's a chance to catch up on bills, build a small emergency fund, or address long-postponed needs. Let's be clear about what's happening and why. This isn't a permanent increase in benefits. It's not a new government program. It's simply a quirk in the calendar that will result in many beneficiaries receiving two payments in October instead of the usual one. But for those living on fixed incomes, this temporary boost can make all the difference. Consider the reality for many beneficiaries today. Inflation continues to press against household budgets, with food, energy, and healthcare costs rising faster than wages. The most recent Consumer Price Index update shows that these essential expenses are outpacing general wage growth. While the Social Security cost of living adjustment announced earlier in the year was significant for many, it has not been enough to balance the rising bills. This is why the unique alignment of the October double payment stands out. It is not a permanent change, but it is a timely lifeline that helps stabilize finances before the holiday season, when expenses often climb even higher. Consider Maria, a 72-year-old veteran in Florida whose VA benefits amount to $1,600 monthly. The October schedule means breathing room to pay rent and still set aside a little for rising insurance premiums. For Robert and Linda, a retired couple in Ohio living on a combined monthly benefit of
Today, we are going to get into something that really hits home for tens of millions of people: Social Security. But look, this isn't going to be some dry lecture about spreadsheets and trust funds. We're going to explore a completely different vision for the future, one where financial security isn't just a far-off dream for seniors and people with disabilities, but something they can actually count on. The ideas we're covering today could mean a total transformation, not just in bank accounts, but in peace of mind, and health, and in simple human dignity. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with the big picture, the vision. Then we'll break down three major proposals: a $200 monthly boost for everyone, some huge changes for SSI, and a plan to make sure the whole system is secure for the long haul. And then we'll put it all together to see what the real combined financial impact looks like for different people. Let's dive in. All right, first things first. It is so easy to get lost in all the numbers, the percentages, the names of these different acts. But we have to remember what's really at stake here. This is not just some accounting problem. It's all about the human side of these policies. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Behind every single number we're about to talk about, there's a real person, a senior who's trying to decide if they should buy groceries this week or pay for their prescription, a person with a disability who literally can't save a dime for an emergency because they're afraid of losing their benefits, a couple that can't get married because the system would actually punish them financially. So as we go through all the details, just keep this idea in your head. This is about letting people finally breathe a little easier. Okay, let's get into the first big proposal, the Social Security Expansion Act. You've probably heard about this one. Its core idea is super direct, really easy to grasp. It's all about providing immediate and widespread help to every single person who gets a Social Security check. So the heart of this act is a $200 a month increase for every beneficiary, straight up. But what does that really mean? A flat $200 has a very different impact depending on where you're starting from. So let's look at the real numbers for real people. For your average individual retiree, this boost takes their monthly check from about $1,838 to over that $2,000 mark. That's an extra $2,400 a year. For someone on the minimum benefit, it's an even bigger deal. We're talking a 21% increase. And for a married couple, that's almost $5,000 extra every single year. This is real, tangible help that shows up in the bank account right away. So what can you actually do with that extra money? $2,400 a year isn't just some number. It's freedom. It's the freedom from having to make impossible choices. It could mean finally affording to go to the dentist, getting cleanings, fillings, maybe even new dentures, which has a huge impact on your overall health. It's getting new glasses so you can actually read a book or see your grandkids' faces clearly. It's the start of an emergency fund, so a flat tire doesn't turn into a total financial disaster. It could cover your whole utility bill every month or a big chunk of your groceries. It's the difference between being stuck at home and actually having the money to travel and see family. That's what we call quality of life. But hold on, because the Social Security Expansion Act has another piece to it. It's a little more technical, but over the long run, its impact could actually be even bigger than that flat $200 raise. It's all about how your benefits keep up with the rising cost of living year after year. Okay, so right now, the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is calculated using something called the CPIW. The big problem is that index tracks what younger working people are buying. It doesn't really get what seniors actually spend their money on, and for them, a much bigger chunk goes to healthcare. So the proposal is to switch to something called the CPIE, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. This one is specifically designed to track senior spending. It gives a much more accurate picture of their costs. And what that means is a slightly higher COLA each year, usually about 0.2 to 0.3% higher. Now, I know that sounds tiny, but just wait. Let's see how that little change builds up over time. And this is where you see the magic of compounding. Let's say we have a retiree who's getting $2,000 a month after that $200 boost. Okay, fast forward 10 years. That tiny little difference in the COLA formula means their monthly check is now $72 higher than it would have been. Now, let's go to year 20. The difference has grown to an extra $181 a month. And when you add it all up over those 2 decades, that small technical tweak puts an extra $22,000 into that retiree's pocket. For someone planning a 30-year retirement, that is a massive, massive improvement in their long-term security. Now, while that across-the-board increase and the COLA change help pretty much everyone, the Social Security Expansion Act has one more provision that is absolutely life-altering for one group in particular, people who were lifelong low-wage workers. We're talking about folks who spent 30-plus years in tough, low-paying jobs and are now facing a retirement in poverty. 57.9%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's the proposed increase for the minimum Social Security benefit. It's a complete game changer for the people who need it the most. Let's see what that looks like in actual dollars. Okay, here's the reality check. Right now, the minimum benefit is about $950 a month, which is way below the poverty line. The proposal here is to set a brand new floor, tying the minimum benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level. That would immediately boost it to $1,500 a month. That is an extra $550 every single month. That's $6,600 a year. This one change literally lifts people who worked their entire lives, home health aides, farm workers, people who worked in childcare, out of poverty and gives them a shot at a life with some basic dignity. It's basically saying that a lifetime of work is worth more than poverty. All right, next up, let's shift our focus to another, even more vulnerable group, people who receive supplemental security income, or SSI. These are some of the lowest income Americans, and many have severe disabilities. The SSI Restoration Act is all about modernizing this critical safety net, which, frankly, has been falling apart after decades of being ignored. So, just like with the Social Security minimum benefit, the first big goal here is just to get people out of poverty. Right now, the max SSI benefit for a single person is $943 a month. That's below the federal poverty line. This act would raise that benefit to 100% of the poverty line, which would increase it to over $1,250 a month. That's an immediate boost of more than $300 a month, over $3,700 a year. And you can see for couples, the increase is also pretty big. This is a direct infusion of cash so people can afford their most basic needs. Now, this might be the most profound change in the SSI Restoration Act, the asset limits. They have not been updated since 1984. Seriously, think about that. For 40 years, a person on SSI couldn't have more than $2,000 to their name, or they'd lose their benefits. This proposal raises that limit to $10,000 for an individual and $20,000 for a couple. This is a revolutionary shift. For the very first time, it allows people to actually save for an emergency, to put money aside for a car, to get to the doctor, or to handle a leaky roof without being terrified of losing their only source of income. It's a move from forced poverty to actual financial empowerment. But there's another piece of this SSI puzzle, and it's a particularly cruel one. It's something called the marriage penalty. The way the rules are set up right now, the system actually punishes people on SSI if they decide to get married. A married couple gets way less in combined benefits than two single people who are just living together. It literally forces people to choose between the person they love and their own financial survival. Let's put a hard number on that. Every year, a married couple on SSI loses $5,652. That is the price tag, just for being married. It's a policy that creates an impossible choice between love and money. The solution in the SSI Restoration Act is as simple as it is powerful. It just gets rid of the penalty completely. Gone. Under the new rules, a married couple would get the exact same total benefit as two single individuals. It's a change that says people with disabilities have the right to build a life together, to love, and to marry without facing financial ruin because of it. So, we've talked about immediate help and lifting up the most vulnerable. Now let's turn to the third major proposal, the Social Security 2100 Act. This one is all about the long-term health of the entire system, making sure it's solvent for generations to come, while also adding in some other smart benefit improvements. So, the big question is always, how do you pay for all this? Well, the Social Security 2100 Act proposes a really key change to how it's funded. Right now, you only pay Social Security taxes on the first $176,000 or so of your income. That means a CEO making millions pays the exact same amount into the system as someone making $177,000. This proposal would make that tax apply again on all earnings above $400,000. So you'd have this donut hole, no new tax between $176K and $400K. The bottom line is, this change would only affect the absolute highest earners. We're talking the top 0.4%. For 99.6% of Americans, their taxes would not go up by a single penny. And at the same time it asks the wealthiest to pay a little more, the 2100 Act actually gives a big tax break to millions of seniors. A lot of people don't even realize that your Social Security benefits can be taxed if you have other income. The income levels where those taxes kick in were set decades ago, and they've never been changed for inflation. This act would finally dramatically raise them. It would double the threshold for single people to $50,000 and more than triple it for married couples to $100,000. So what does that mean in real dollars? Well, for a single senior with a total income of $25,000, maybe from a small pension plus Social Security, their federal tax bill on their benefits would drop to zero. That's an extra $1,000 to $1,500 back in their pocket every year. For a couple with a combined income of $40,000, their tax bill on benefits would also disappear, saving them between $1,500 and $2,000 annually. It's just another way of boosting people's income by letting seniors keep more of the benefits they earned over a lifetime. Okay, so we've looked at three different, really powerful proposals: the Social Security Expansion Act, the SSI Restoration Act, and the Social Security 2100 Act. Now, for what I think is the most important part of this whole explainer, let's stack them all on top of each other and see what the combined financial transformation actually looks like for real people. This is where a whole new reality starts to take shape. Let's start with our average senior retiree. Right now, they're getting about $22,000 a year from Social Security. With these reforms, that $200 monthly boost adds $2,400 a year right off the bat. Then the tax relief from the 2100 Act could save them another $1,400 or so. All of a sudden, their annual income from Social Security is almost $26,000. That's an increase of more than $3,800 a year, a 17% boost. That is a huge leap in financial security. Now, take a look at the lifelong low-wage worker. They're starting at just $11,400 a year, deep in poverty. The combination of that $200 boost and the new higher minimum benefit lifts their annual income to around $18,400. This is a staggering increase of $7,000 a year, a more than 60% boost. This is what it looks like when policy is targeted to make a profound difference. This isn't just an increase, it's an escape hatch from poverty. For an individual on SSI, the story is just as transformative. Their annual benefit jumps from about $11,300 to over $15,000. That's a 33% increase that pulls them above the poverty line. But remember, the money is only half the story here. The other, equally crucial benefit is that they can now save up to $10,000 without being penalized. So it's a 1-2 punch. More income for everyday life, and for the first time, the freedom to build a safety net for the future. And finally, maybe the most dramatic transformation of all, a married couple with disabilities on SSI. Today, because of that marriage penalty, they get just under $17,000 a year. By raising the benefit for each person and getting rid of that unjust penalty, their combined annual income skyrockets to over $30,000. That is a 77% increase. It is, and I'm not exaggerating, a complete financial rebirth that allows them to build a life together with real security and dignity. As powerful as those charts are, we've got to circle back to where we began. The true impact of all these changes can't really be captured in a bar graph. The transformation goes so much deeper than just dollars and cents. It's about what that money, that security, makes possible in a person's life. This is the real payoff, right here. It's freedom from that constant nagging anxiety of wondering how you're going to pay the next bill. It's the dignity of being able to choose healthier food or a safer apartment. It's the joy of being able to be part of your community, to maybe volunteer or just go out for coffee with a friend instead of being isolated by poverty. And of course, it's the profound security of being able to build a life with the person you love without the government standing in your way. This is a total transformation in well-being. So how does this all become real? Well, these aren't just abstract ideas. They are actual bills being debated in Congress right now. The path forward means moving through committees, getting votes in both the House and the Senate, and finally getting a signature from the president. But look at step 3 on this slide. That might be the most important one. Public support. Polls consistently show that over 80% of Americans, and that includes big majorities of both Democrats and Republicans, support expanding Social Security. That overwhelming public will is what creates the political pressure to turn these bills into laws. And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. This whole debate isn't just about budget priorities. It's a question of our national values. The cost of doing nothing is measured every single day in human suffrage, in seniors cutting pills in half, in people with disabilities trapped in poverty, in love being penalized. These proposals offer a different path. And so the real question is, as a country, can we afford not to take it? We're about to do a really deep dive into some major proposals that could seriously increase your monthly income. And this is about way more than just numbers on a page. It's about what those numbers actually mean for your day-to-day life. We're talking about more security, a lot less stress, and just, well, more peace of mind. So let me just ask you this straight up. Is your monthly check really enough to live on without that constant nagging worry? For millions and millions of people, the honest answer is just no. Life becomes this endless juggling act, right? Choosing between buying groceries or getting your prescription filled, paying the electric bill, or finally fixing that noise the car is making. That kind of daily stress, it just grinds you down. This whole explainer is about the plans that are aiming to change that exact reality. This quote, I think, just gets right to the heart of the whole thing. It's about moving from a state of financial anxiety to one of real stability. It's the promise that one unexpected bill doesn't have to spiral into a full-blown crisis. And that promise, well, that's the ultimate goal of the very real proposals we're about to break down piece by piece. Okay, let's dive right in. The first major proposal we're going to look at is called the Social Security Expansion Act. Now, this one is designed to give an immediate and very noticeable boost to the monthly checks that millions of people receive. The big headline number for this act is a proposed annual increase of $2,400. Now just think about that for a second. For so many people, that amount of money could finally cover some long overdue dental work or get a safe set of new tires for the car. Or maybe, just maybe, be the start of a real emergency fund. So that big annual number breaks down to an extra $200 in every single check. And let's be clear, this isn't some one-time payment. No, this is a proposed permanent, reliable boost to your monthly income. And it's that consistency, that really allows for actual planning and gives you a true sense of security. So what does an extra $200 a month actually mean in real life? Well, as you can see here, it could cover a whole week of fresh, healthy groceries. It could take care of your prescription costs. It could mean paying the utility bills in full and on time. It's gas money for the month. It's the freedom to handle one of life's little emergencies without blowing up your entire budget. But the proposal actually goes beyond just that flat increase. It would also reform the annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA. Right now, the COLA often just doesn't keep up with the things that seniors spend the most on, especially healthcare. This reform would tie that adjustment to an index that better reflects those real costs, helping your benefits hold onto their buying power year after year. Okay, next up, let's turn our attention to supplemental security income, or SSI. Because for folks on SSI, the proposed changes are, frankly, even more transformative. These proposals aren't just about increasing payments, they're about rewriting some really unfair rules that have been on the books for decades. So the SSI Restoration Act is a big one. Its main goal is to lift recipients above the federal poverty line, and you can see it right here on the chart. The proposal would raise the average monthly benefit from $943 to $1,255. That's an increase of more than $300 every single month.
And what does an extra $312 a month really represent? Let's be honest, it's not a luxury. It is the ability to afford 3 square meals a day. It could be the difference in finding safer housing or just being able to cover the copays for necessary doctor visits. In short, it provides the resources for basic health and human dignity.
This proposal also takes aim at something critics call the marriage penalty. It's a pretty wild rule. Currently, when two people who both receive SSI get married, their combined benefit is actually cut by about 25% compared to what they got when they were single. It makes no sense. The SSI Restoration Act would get rid of this rule completely. Just look at this table. The difference is absolutely staggering. Right now, a married couple on SSI gets a combined $1,415. Under this proposal, they would get to keep their 2 full individual benefits for a total of $2,510. That's a difference of over $1,000 a month. Just incredible. And there's another major change here targeting asset limits. The current SSI rule says you can't have more than $2,000 in assets. Now get this, that number has not been updated since 1984. It's basically impossible to build any kind of emergency savings. This proposal would raise that limit to $10,000 for an individual, finally allowing people to build a small safety net without being penalized. So let's step back for a second and put all of this together. We've talked about some pretty significant monthly increases, and we've talked about fixing some really outdated rules. But what would all of this combined actually mean for your day-to-day life? Let's try and paint a picture of that new financial reality. On top of the monthly increases, some of these proposals also include a one-time payment of $1,400. Now, this is really designed to provide some immediate relief, to help people catch up on bills and other expenses that have been piling up. And this isn't just some abstract number. Think about what $1,400 could do right now. It could be enough to finally get caught up on those past due bills. It could pay for that urgent car repair you've been dreading. Or maybe it means finally getting that dental work done or buying new glasses you've been putting off. It's a tool to solve an immediate, pressing problem. Now, these different proposals are often part of a few larger legislative packages. One of the big ones is called the Social Security 2100 Act, and it includes a provision to increase the minimum benefits. The idea is simple. Anyone with a 30-year work history would receive a benefit that is at least 25% above the federal poverty line, period. So when you start stacking all these pieces on top of each other, the total potential impact becomes incredibly clear. You've got the proposed $200 monthly increase, potential savings from tax cuts that are also in the 2100 Act, a more accurate COLA that keeps up with your real costs, and that one-time payment. It's really a multi-layered approach to creating genuine financial stability. And the difference these changes could make, it isn't just about the money. It's emotional. It's the shift from that constant, grinding money stress to actual peace of mind, from skipping things you need to being able to afford them, from feeling stuck and isolated at home to being able to go out and join friends for coffee. It's a fundamental shift from just surviving to actually feeling secure. So, how could these proposals actually become reality? This is so important to understand. They are being debated by lawmakers as we speak. They are not law yet, and that's exactly where you and your voice come into the picture. Here are the actual names of the key proposals we've been talking about. You have the Social Security Expansion Act, the SSI Restoration Act, and the Social Security 2100 Act. These are the specific pieces of legislation that contain all of the various improvements we've just explored in detail. Your voice has real power in this debate. This slide lays out some concrete steps you can actually take. Calling or emailing your representatives to share your personal story, that's a powerful and direct action. You can also talk about it with your friends and family, support advocacy groups that are on the front lines, and of course, vote for candidates who align with your views on this. Let's end on the core principle that supporters of these changes always come back to. They argue that this isn't about giving a handout. It's about honoring a lifetime of contributions, and it's about making sure that people can live their later years with the security and the dignity that they have absolutely earned. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. What would be the very first weight lifted off your shoulders if you had a more secure income every month? This isn't just abstract policy. It's about your life, your health, and your peace of mind. A more secure future that proponents say is absolutely within our reach. Today, we are going to dive deep into some really ambitious proposals that could completely reshape Social Security as we know it. And listen, these aren't just minor tweaks we're talking about. This is a fundamental reimagining of what financial security looks like for tens of millions of people in America, from retirees to those with disabilities. We're going to get right into the numbers, the mechanics, and what this all could mean for real people. And that quote right there really gets to the heart of all this, doesn't it? This isn't just about spreadsheets and policy debates in Washington. It's a human story. It's about giving people a life of dignity, about easing that daily anxiety so many feel, and making sure that after a lifetime of hard work, people can actually retire with some real security and peace of mind. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the big picture, that core vision. Then we'll break down 3 major legislative proposals, piece by piece. After that, we'll see what happens when you put them all together, the combined financial impact on real people. And finally, we'll look at what it takes to turn this vision into reality. Okay, so before we jump into the dollar amounts and percentages, I think it's really important to understand the why behind all of this. These reforms are aiming to solve a problem that goes so much deeper than just what's in a person's bank account. You know, financial insecurity is this crushing weight. It's that constant nagging anxiety. You know, that voice in your head asking, can I afford my rent and my medication this month? It means not having dignified choices, like having to buy the cheapest food, not the healthiest. It can even lead to social isolation because you can't afford to go out and see friends or family. And all that stress, it leads to very real health problems. So as we get into the numbers, let's just remember, this is the human cost we're really trying to fix. All right, let's get into the first major proposal. This one is called the Social Security Expansion Act, and it's designed to give immediate, widespread relief with a really direct and, honestly, powerful approach. So, to put it simply, this act is all about boosting monthly checks for everyone right away, while also making some key adjustments to make sure the system stays strong for years to come. Let's start with the biggest, most immediate change it proposes. This is the big headline. A simple, straightforward $200 a month increase for every single person receiving Social Security. There are no complex formulas here, no means testing. It doesn't matter if you're a retired teacher, a former construction worker, or someone getting disability benefits. This is an immediate, universal boost to your monthly income. Now let's see how that $200 really adds up. For your average individual, it pushes their monthly check over that $2,000 mark, which means an extra $2,400 a year. For a couple, you double that. That's $4,800 annually. And look at the person getting the minimum benefit. For them, this is a massive 21% jump in their income. That is a truly significant boost. So what does $2,400 a year actually mean? For most people, this isn't about fancy vacation money. It's life-changing. It could cover essential dental work that's been put off for years. It could mean finally getting a new pair of glasses without having to worry about the cost. Or maybe for the very first time in their life, it could let someone build a small emergency fund for when the car inevitably breaks down. It's the difference between constant stress and just a little bit of breathing room. The Expansion Act also makes this really crucial kind of under-the-hood change that has huge long-term effects. It changes how the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is calculated. Right now, the formula is based on the spending habits of younger working people. This proposal would switch to something called the CPIE, which is specifically designed to track the costs that seniors actually face, like their typically higher healthcare and housing bills. And this chart shows you exactly why that little technical change is so powerful. It might not seem like a big deal year to year, but because of compounding, the impact over time is enormous. Let's say someone starts with a $2,000 a month benefit. After 20 years, this new CPIE formula would mean their monthly check is $181 higher than it would be under the old system. That's over $2,100 extra every year, just from this one small tweak. The Act also creates a new, much more robust minimum benefit for people who worked for decades but were always in low-wage jobs. It sets the minimum benefit at 125% of the federal poverty level. That would boost the current minimum from about $950 a month all the way up to a much more stable $1,500. Just let that sink in for a second. 57.9%. For someone who's spent 30 years as a home health aide or a farm worker or a childcare provider, this is a nearly 58% increase in their retirement income. It's a direct lifeline. It moves them from deep poverty, not just to the poverty line, but securely above it. This is one of the most powerful anti-poverty measures in any of these proposals. All right, next up, we're going to look at Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. Now, this is a separate program that supports the most financially vulnerable among us, low-income seniors and people with disabilities. And the SSI Restoration Act aims to completely overhaul this critical safety net. First thing it does is raise the benefit itself. Here's a crazy fact. Right now, the maximum federal SSI benefit is actually below the federal poverty line. This proposal fixes that, plain and simple, raising the individual benefit to 100% of the poverty level. And as you can see, for a single person, that's an increase of over $300 a month. That totals almost $3,800 extra per year. Now this is frankly revolutionary. The current asset limits for people on SSI, they haven't been updated since 1984. Can you believe that? They basically force people into poverty and punish them for saving any money at all. The proposed change would increase the limit for an individual by 400%, from just $2,000 to $10,000. And for a couple, it's an even bigger jump to $20,000. So what does that mean in the real world? It means someone on SSI could finally build a small emergency fund without being terrified of losing their benefits. It means they could save up for a reliable used car to get to their doctor's appointments. It means they could handle a major home repair without going into debt. It allows for a basic foundation of security that's just impossible right now under these ancient rules. And now we have to talk about one of the cruelest parts of the current SSI system, the marriage penalty. It's exactly what it sounds like. If two people on SSI get married, their combined benefit is slashed by a full 25%. The system literally forces people to choose between a committed relationship and their own financial survival. And let's put a hard number on that. If two people who are each getting the maximum SSI benefit get married, their monthly income is cut by $471. That's over $5,600 a year that they lose, just for formalizing their relationship. It's a direct financial punishment for love and commitment. It's absurd. The SSI Restoration Act does exactly what its name says it does. It restores dignity by completely getting rid of this penalty. A married couple would get the same total benefit as two individuals living together. There would be zero financial penalty for getting married. Simple as that. So we've seen these big proposals to increase benefits right now. But the big question is always, how do we make sure the system stays strong for generations to come? Well, that's where our third piece of legislation comes in, the Social Security 2100 Act. It's all about long-term solvency. So, how is all of this paid for? Well, the main funding idea is to ask the highest earners to contribute a little more. Right now, there's a cap on how much of your income is subject to Social Security taxes. This proposal keeps that current cap, but then it reapplies the tax on all earnings above $400,000 a year. It just ensures that those with the highest incomes contribute on a larger chunk of their earnings. And here is the single most important takeaway on the funding. This change would not increase taxes for 99.6% of working Americans. Only the top 0.4% of earners, people making over $400,000 a year, would contribute more. For the vast majority of the country, your payroll taxes wouldn't change at all. And get this, the 2100 Act also includes a significant tax cut for millions of seniors. It does this by raising the income level where your benefits themselves start to become taxable. For single folks, that threshold doubles to $50,000, and for married couples, it more than triples to $100,000. This is a direct boost to the take-home income for millions of middle-class retirees. Okay, we've looked at 3 different acts with a whole bunch of different provisions. Now for the most exciting part. Let's put it all together and see what the total financial transformation would actually look like for real people. So first, let's take a look at a typical senior retiree. This is someone who's getting the average Social Security benefit, and maybe they have a small pension or some retirement income that puts them at a modest tax bracket. When we combine that $200 across-the-board increase with the tax savings from the 2100 Act, their financial picture changes pretty dramatically. Their annual income gets a boost of up to $3,900. That's almost an 18% raise. It provides significant relief from the rising cost of healthcare and just, daily living. Now let's look at someone who's spent their life in low-wage work and is now retiring on the minimum benefit. This is where the impact becomes truly life-altering. So this person benefits from multiple proposals all at once. You've got the new higher minimum benefit plus that $200 flat increase, and it pushes their annual income up by over $7,000. That's more than 60% raise. This isn't just a number on a page. This is the end of that constant anxiety we talked about at the beginning. This is what lifting someone firmly out of poverty and into a life of basic financial dignity actually looks like. And for our final case study, let's look at the couple we discussed earlier, 2 people with disabilities, both on SSI, who just want to build a life together. This is the most profound transformation of all. Right now, the system slashes their benefit just for getting married. With these reforms, their individual benefits rise to the poverty line, and the marriage penalty is eliminated. Their combined monthly income jumps to over $2,500. That's an annual increase of over $13,000. It is a staggering 77% raise that affirms their right to love, to marry, and to build a secure life together. These numbers, they represent an incredible vision for a more secure America. But they are not just ideas on a piece of paper. These are active legislative proposals. So the big question is, how do we get from this vision to an actual reality? Well, the path to any law has a few key steps. A bill has to pass through committees in both the House and the Senate. Then it has to get a full vote in both chambers. If the versions are different, they have to be reconciled into one. And then finally, that single version goes to the president to be signed into law. And one of the most compelling points in all of this is this. While Washington might seem completely divided, the American public really isn't. There's overwhelming bipartisan support for expanding Social Security. A recent poll found that 84% of all Americans are in favor, including a staggering 78% of Republicans. For the public, this isn't a partisan issue. It's just a common sense priority. So we end with this question. Beyond all the dollar amounts and the percentages, these proposals represent a potential future with a lot less fear and anxiety for millions of people. The real question they pose is about the kind of society we want to be, one that honors its elders, supports its most vulnerable, and ensures a lifetime of contribution is met with real security. Ultimately, these numbers ask all of us to define what financial dignity truly looks like for America. Today, we are taking a deep look at some huge proposals that are on the table right now aimed at completely reshaping Social Security and supplemental security income, SSI. And listen, these aren't just little tweaks around the edges. We're talking about a whole new vision for what retirement and disability support looks like in America. So let's break it all down. This quote from the source material, it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly frames this entire conversation. This isn't just about spreadsheets and budgets. It's about dignity, it's about security, it's about the kind of promise we want to make to our seniors and our most vulnerable neighbors. It's a really powerful way to think about the human side of all the numbers we're about to get into. So here's the game plan. We're going to break down 3 major pieces of proposed legislation: the Social Security Expansion Act, the SSI Restoration Act, and the Social Security 2100 Act. We'll look at exactly what they do, who they're going to affect, and, of course, the big question, how they'd be paid for. First up, let's talk about the Social Security Expansion Act. Honestly, this is the cornerstone of the whole vision. It's the foundation for a lot of the other changes, and its main goal is super direct: to provide immediate, substantial financial relief to every single person receiving Social Security benefits. The headline feature of this act is a real game changer: a proposed across-the-board increase of $200 per month. And let me be clear, this is not a one-time check. This would be a permanent boost added to every single monthly payment for everyone, from retired workers to people on disability. So what does that look like over a year? Well, it adds up to an extra $2,400. For any household on a fixed income, that is not just a number. That's real security. That's money for a car repair you didn't see coming. It could cover months of utility bills. Frankly, it can be the difference between just getting by and facing a real crisis. Okay, let's put some real numbers to this. The average Social Security benefit right now is about $1,838 a month. With this change, it would jump to over $2,000, $2,038 to be exact. That's an 11% increase. I mean, think about that. For someone on a fixed income, an 11% raise just like that is absolutely massive. It provides some serious breathing room in a budget that is often stretched way too thin. Next up is a change that sounds a little technical, but stick with me because this is so important. It has to do with the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA. Right now, the formula is based on how younger urban workers spend their money. The problem? That formula really doesn't account for the massive healthcare and housing costs that seniors actually face. So the proposal is to switch to something called the CPIE, which is an index based on how the elderly actually spend. This would make sure benefits keep up with the real inflation seniors are experiencing. And over a long retirement, that could mean thousands and thousands of extra dollars. This is another truly transformative part of the Expansion Act. It sets up a brand new, much stronger minimum benefit. And the goal here is simple, but it's profound. If you work for 30 years, paying into the system your whole life, you should not retire into poverty, period. The new minimum would be set at 125% of the federal poverty level. For millions of people who've spent their lives in tough, low-wage jobs, this would be an absolute lifeline, ensuring a basic level of dignity they've earned. Okay, let's shift gears now to the SSI Restoration Act. This one is all about modernizing the rules for supplemental security income. SSI is a critical safety net for about 8 million of our most vulnerable Americans, but a lot of its rules are just wildly out of date. We're talking decades old. The first big change here is a direct, substantial increase in the benefit itself. The current maximum federal SSI benefit is just $943 a month, which means recipients are actually living below the poverty line. This proposal would raise that benefit all the way up to 100% of the federal poverty level, which is about $1,255 a month. That's an extra $312 every single month, a 33% boost designed to pull people out of poverty, full stop. Now, this proposal also tackles one of the most ridiculous SSI rules on the books, the asset limit. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. It has not been updated since 1984. 1984. The current limit of just $2,000 makes it literally impossible to save for an emergency. This proposal raises it to $10,000 for an individual and $20,000 for a couple. For the first time, this would allow people to build a small safety net without being punished for it. The current SSI rules also create what is just an impossible choice for so many people. It's because of something known as the marriage penalty. Right now, if two people who both receive SSI benefits decide to get married, their total combined benefit gets cut by nearly 25%. I mean, can you imagine? It forces countless couples to choose between getting legally married and their own financial survival. So, the SSI Restoration Act has a very clear, very compassionate solution. Just get rid of the marriage penalty completely. Under this change, two SSI recipients who get married would continue to receive the exact same total benefit they did as two single people. It basically says that people with disabilities have every right to build a life together without facing a devastating financial punishment for it. Okay, so we've looked at all the individual pieces of these proposals, but the real magic, the real power happens when you start stacking them all together. This is where you can truly see the combined financial impact these changes could have on people's everyday lives. So let's take a real-world example. Imagine someone who's worked their entire life in low-wage jobs. First, they'd get that flat $200 boost that everyone gets. Then, on top of that, the new minimum benefit rule could add another $300 to $500 to their monthly check. You add it all up, and their monthly retirement income could increase by $500, $600, maybe even $700. For many people, that could nearly double their income, transforming their retirement from a struggle to one of basic security. And if you thought that was incredible, wait until you see the impact for a married couple with disabilities on SSI. It's just revolutionary. The benefit increase adds $624 a month. Then, eliminating that cruel marriage penalty restores another $471. That is a total monthly gain of $1,095. Annually, that's over $13,000 more a year, a 77% income boost that would fundamentally change their quality of life. Of course, a big question is probably popping into your head right about now. Expanding benefits is great, but how do we make sure the system is strong for generations to come? Well, that's where the third proposal, the Social Security 2100 Act, comes into play. It's all about long-term solvency, and it adds a few more really key improvements. This is it. This is the question on everyone's mind, right? A major expansion of benefits like this needs a serious plan to pay for it, not just for today, but for decades to come. And the Social Security 2100 Act proposes a very specific way to do just that. Okay, here's how the funding would work, and it's actually pretty straightforward. Right now, there's a cap on the income that's subject to Social Security payroll taxes. This proposal would keep everything the same for most people, but it would reapply the tax on all earnings above $400,000 a year. Let me be super clear about this. For 99.6% of Americans, taxes would not change at all. This plan only affects the top 0.4% of earners, asking them to contribute more to secure the system for everyone. And get this, the 2100 Act also includes a tax cut for millions of Social Security beneficiaries. Right now, your benefits can be taxed if your total income is over just $25,000. This proposal would double that threshold to $50,000 for individuals and more than triple it to $100,000 for married couples. For a whole lot of middle-income retirees, that means an immediate increase in their take-home pay. So with all these transformative ideas on the table, what's the real chance of them becoming law? It's really important to understand that what we've been talking about are proposals. They're being debated right now in Congress. They aren't established law yet. Yeah, the legislative process is a long road. These bills have to get through committees in both the House and the Senate. Then they have to get a vote on the floor. And a lot of the time, the House and Senate pass different versions, which then have to be worked out before one final bill can be sent to the president. It's a whole process, and public support really does play a crucial role. And that public support? It's incredibly strong. A recent poll found that 84% of all Americans, including a remarkable 78% of Republicans, support increasing Social Security benefits. So while the politicians in Washington might be debating, it seems the public has pretty much made up its mind. This is not a partisan issue for most people. It's just a widely shared belief that this system needs to be strengthened. Ultimately, all these proposals, all these numbers and tables, they force us to ask a really fundamental question. They move the conversation beyond just accounting and ask us all to think about the value of dignity, of security, and of peace of mind for millions of our fellow citizens. What is the true value of a secure retirement and of a society that actually honors the promises it makes to people who've worked their whole lives? That's the real question at the heart of this entire debate. Today, we are jumping right into a topic that really hits home for millions of Americans: Social Security. We're going to go way beyond the headlines to look at some specific proposals on the table right now, ideas that could seriously change your monthly budget, your peace of mind, and really your whole future. We're going to break down the numbers, the rules, and what it could all mean for you. So let's just start with a question. I want you to take a second and really think about this. What if your monthly check actually covered all of your bills? I mean, everything. The rent, the lights, food, your prescriptions, and you still had money left over at the end of the month. How would that feel? That feeling? Well, that's the promise behind the reforms we're going to explore today. You know, for so many people, the end of the month is this constant, stressful tightrope walk, figuring out what gets paid and what has to wait. But the proposals we're about to dive into, they're not just abstract ideas. They represent a potential path to real, tangible relief from that day in, day out financial pressure. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We're going to look at the actual dollar figures being proposed and translate them into what really matters, the real-world impact on your wallet. This is where a policy written on paper starts to feel like a meaningful change in your actual life. So the most straightforward ideas are the ones that, well, put more money in your pocket each month. Let's start right there and look at what could be a pretty significant across-the-board increase for Social Security beneficiaries. Okay, so a major piece of legislation that's being discussed is called the Social Security Expansion Act, and the cornerstone of this act is a direct across-the-board increase for every single person receiving Social Security, an extra $200 each and every month. And this isn't some temporary fix. We're talking about a permanent boost to your base benefit. You know, an extra $200 isn't just a number on a statement. In real life, that's a week's worth of fresh, healthy groceries instead of just relying on canned goods. It's being able to cover your prescriptions without having to choose between your health and some other bill. It's paying the electric bill in full, on time, without that constant worry about a late fee or a shutoff notice. For a lot of folks, it's just the peace of mind knowing that if your glasses break, you can actually afford to get them fixed without a full-blown crisis. And when you zoom out and look at it over a whole year, the impact gets even bigger. That $200 a month adds up to an extra $2,400. That is a really significant amount of money. Think about what that could do. Maybe it's that essential dental work you've been putting off for years, or a new set of tires for the car so you feel safe on the road. It creates a financial cushion that right now just doesn't exist for so many people. Now, beyond just a flat-out raise, another really crucial proposal tackles the annual cost of living adjustments, or COLA. Right now, the COLA is calculated using a formula that tracks what younger working people buy. The problem? Well, retirees and seniors spend their money very differently. A much, much bigger chunk of their income goes to things like healthcare, and healthcare costs are rising way faster than general inflation. So this proposal would switch to a new formula, one designed specifically for the elderly that gives more weight to the things people are actually spending their money on. The bottom line is, your benefits wouldn't just get a one-time boost. They'd be better protected from losing their buying power year after year. Now let's switch gears and talk about supplemental security income, or SSI, because here the proposed changes are even more dramatic. The SSI Restoration Act is aiming to lift benefits from the current level of around $943 a month all the way up to the federal poverty line, which would be about $1,255. That's an increase of $312 every single month. I mean, that is a genuine lifeline that could pull millions of people out of poverty and give them a shot at real stability. On top of all these permanent monthly increases, there's also serious discussion happening about another round of one-time stimulus payments. This idea would provide an immediate cash injection of $1,400 to help people deal with urgent, pressing needs that have been piling up. This isn't for long-term planning. This is about immediate help right now. A lump sum payment like this is all about tackling those big, stressful problems that keep you up at night. It could mean finally getting caught up on past due bills, getting that dental work you've been putting off for years, or paying down a high-interest credit card. And that last one is huge, because paying off that kind of debt doesn't just solve an immediate problem, it frees up more of your cash every single month going forward. It's a chance to hit the reset button. All right, so putting more cash in people's pockets is absolutely critical, but it's really only half of the puzzle. The other half is about fixing these outdated and frankly unfair rules that can trap people in poverty and limit their most basic life choices. So let's look at how these proposals want to fix the system itself. This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of one of the most punishing rules in the current SSI system, what's known as the marriage penalty. Right now, the system literally penalizes two people on SSI financially if they decide to get married. These new reforms are built on a very simple principle. Your benefits shouldn't force you to choose between financial security and the person you love. Just take a look at these numbers. It's kind of shocking when you see it laid out like this. Right now, two individuals on SSI get a combined $1,886. But if they get married, their benefit gets slashed to $1,415. They lose almost $500 a month just for getting married. The proposal gets rid of that penalty completely. And when you combine that with the benefit increase we just talked about, a married couple would bring in over $1,000 more per month than they do today. This is a complete game changer that restores dignity to relationships. Here's another rule that's just incredibly out of date. Since 1984, that's right, 1984, SSI recipients have not been allowed to have more than $2,000 in assets without losing their benefits. Just to put that in perspective, $2,000 back then would be worth over $6,000 today. The rule is stuck in the past. The proposal would raise this limit to a much more realistic $10,000. This means you could finally have a real emergency fund. If the car breaks down, you don't have to go into debt, you can have some money set aside. It provides a level of security that is basically impossible right now. So we've looked at the direct payments and we've looked at the rule changes. Now let's try to put it all together. What would daily life actually feel like if all of this became reality? Because this is about more than just numbers on a page. It's about a total shift in your day-to-day existence. So picture your morning. Instead of waking up with that familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach about which bill you can afford to pay, you wake up with a sense of calm. You can take your medicine on time without worrying about the cost of the refill. You can have a healthy breakfast because you actually had the money to buy fresh groceries. The entire tone of your day changes before you've even had your first cup of coffee. And that feeling of security carries right through your afternoon. A trip to the grocery store becomes about choosing nutritious food, not just what's cheapest. You have the freedom to say yes when a friend asks you to go grab a cup of coffee. You can make a doctor's appointment without dreading the copay. All these little freedoms add up to a life that feels less isolated and more connected, healthier, and just fuller. And at night, that constant grinding worry that keeps so many people awake can finally start to fade. Just knowing you have a small savings account for an emergency, knowing your income is stable and will actually keep up with rising costs, that financial security is directly tied to better physical and mental health. It means you can actually rest, and that's absolutely essential for your well-being. And this quote really sums up the entire goal here. For far too long, the system has forced millions of people into a state of just barely surviving, where every single day is a struggle just to get by. These reforms are all about making a crucial shift, from just surviving to actually living. It's about having the resources and the peace of mind to enjoy your retirement, your relationships, and your life with the dignity that you absolutely deserve. Now, it is really important to remember that this more secure future we're talking about isn't a guarantee just yet. All the ideas we've discussed are inside legislative proposals that are being debated right now. They need political will and, just as importantly, public support to actually get signed into law. So let's just quickly run through the key proposals we touched on. You've got the Social Security Expansion Act, which is where that big $200 monthly increase comes from. There's the SSI Restoration Act, which would raise those benefits and fix the marriage penalty and asset limits. You also have the Social Security 2100 Act, which includes benefit improvements and tax relief. And then separate from all that is the ongoing talk about another one-time stimulus payment for immediate help. So, for anyone who believes in these changes, the path forward really involves taking action. That means things like contacting your elected representatives to let them know where you stand. Sharing your own personal story can be incredibly powerful. It puts a human face on all these numbers. And of course, voting for candidates who support these issues and joining advocacy groups adds your voice to a growing chorus that's demanding change. So, we're going to end right where we began, with a question for you to think about. After hearing all these details, the numbers, the potential changes, what would this level of financial security truly mean for you, for your family, for your future? What doors would it open? What worries would it finally close? That vision, that's what this entire conversation is really about. And it's a future that a lot of people believe is worth fighting for.
Today, we're going to get into a topic that is on a lot of people's minds, the future of Social Security. There are some major proposals being discussed right now that can mean a huge increase in benefits. So we're going to break down exactly what these changes could mean for your wallet.
You know, this one sentence really gets to the heart of what's driving these reforms. It's such a powerful idea. It frames this whole conversation not just as policy talk, but about the kind of society we actually want to live in. You know, one where a lifetime of hard work is rewarded with security, not constant worry.
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's the one we're here to answer today. I mean, it's one thing to talk about big ideas like dignity and security, but it's a whole other thing to see what that means in actual dollars and cents. How does this vision translate into cold, hard cash for you or the people you care about?
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with that big vision, then we'll break down the 3 key legislative proposals that are making all this happen. After that, we're getting into the real numbers, looking at the financial impact on 3 different groups: the average retiree, the person who's worked low-wage jobs their whole life, and SSI recipients. And then we'll wrap it all up by looking at the big picture. So let's be clear. Our focus today is 100% on the numbers. We're going to move past all the political back and forth and just give you a clear financial picture of what these potential reforms could mean for millions of Americans.
Okay, so to really understand these potential financial shifts, we first have to look at the 3 main legislative acts that are the engines behind all this. Each one tackles a different part of the system, but when you put them together, well, they create a pretty comprehensive overhaul.
All right, first up is the Social Security Expansion Act. The main feature here is super simple and super powerful. A direct, across-the-board increase of $200 a month for every single beneficiary. That's an extra $2,400 a year.
For the average person on Social Security, that's like getting an 11% raise overnight. A huge deal for anyone on a fixed income.
Next, we have the SSI Restoration Act. Now, this one is laser-focused on the 8 million Americans, the elderly, blind, and disabled, who rely on supplemental security income. Right now, the maximum federal benefit actually leaves people living below the poverty line. This act would change that, period. It would raise benefits to 100% of the federal poverty level.
And the third piece of this puzzle is the Social Security 2100 Act. This one kind of takes the long view. It has a bunch of improvements, but for our purposes, there are two key things to know. It creates a new, much stronger minimum benefit for folks who've worked in low-wage jobs their whole lives, and it provides some significant tax relief for beneficiaries. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, because these proposals aren't mutually exclusive. Their effects can actually be combined. So let's start by looking at what this combination of reforms could mean for an average retiree. We're talking about a real transformation in their financial reality. So the average Social Security benefit today is hovering around $1,838 a month. Right off the bat, the Expansion Act adds a flat $200. On top of that, a proposed change to how cost of living adjustments are calculated could add another, say, $10 to $15. And then the tax relief from the 2100 Act could put another $50 to $75 back in their pocket. You add it all up, and the average retiree could see their monthly income jump by about $300.
And listen, this is not a small change. That $300 a month adds up to $3,600 over the course of a year. For someone living on about $22,000 a year, that is a 16% increase in their total income. That is genuinely transformative. So what does an extra $3,600 a year actually buy you? It buys you peace of mind. It means you no longer have to choose between refilling your prescriptions and buying a full cart of groceries. It means when the car gets a flat tire, it doesn't automatically become a financial crisis that sends you into debt. It's the difference between just getting by and having the breathing room to maybe save a little, go visit the grandkids, or just enjoy a hobby. It's about restoring dignity. So, if the impact on the average retiree is significant, for people who have spent a lifetime in physically demanding, low-wage jobs, well, it's nothing short of revolutionary. These are the folks who have so often fallen through the cracks of the system as it is. It's a harsh reality that right now, someone can work for 30 years in a low-wage job and still retire into poverty. These proposals would completely flip that script. They'd get that same $200 bump from the Expansion Act, but then the new minimum benefit from the 2100 Act could add another $300 to $500 per month. With tax relief on top, we're talking a total monthly increase of between $530 and $750. For a lot of these folks, that could nearly double their retirement income.
Seriously, let's just pause on that number for a second. An annual increase of up to $9,000. This isn't just about a little financial relief. This is a fundamental shift. It's the difference between retiring into poverty and retiring with a basic level of security and dignity that actually honors a lifetime of work.
This changes everything. It means having enough money for healthy food and to actually see a doctor when you need to. It means having a small cushion for emergencies instead of being one unexpected bill away from total disaster. For millions of people, home health aides, farm workers, childcare providers, this provides a level of security in their later years that was probably unimaginable before. Now let's turn to the 8 million Americans on supplemental security income. We're talking about some of our nation's most vulnerable citizens, the elderly, the blind, and the disabled. And for this group, these proposed changes would be absolutely life-altering.
The current max federal SSI benefit is $943 a month, which, yes, is below the poverty line. The SSI Restoration Act would boost that to $1,255. That's an immediate $312 extra every single month. That's a 33% raise that lifts people out of poverty in one single move. Over a year, that's an increase of more than $3,700. And again, this isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It represents the very real, tangible difference between living in poverty and living with a baseline of dignity, free from that constant grinding anxiety of never having enough.
But the changes here go even deeper than the monthly check. And this one is just incredible. The SSI Restoration Act also fixes one of the system's most outdated, punishing rules, the asset limit. For 40 years, since 1984, recipients couldn't have more than $2,000 in savings. This proposal raises that limit 5 times over, to $10,000, finally allowing millions to build a small emergency fund without the fear of losing their benefits.
And it also gets rid of another major, frankly inhumane problem, the marriage penalty. As it stands now, if two people on SSI get married, their combined benefits get cut by almost 25%. It forces this impossible choice between having a relationship and financial survival. This proposal ends that. A married couple's benefit would go from that penalized $1,415 a month to a full $2,510. That is a 77% income increase. It's about affirming the right to build a life with someone you love without being punished for it.
So when you take a step back and you look at the combined effect of all these proposed changes, the across-the-board increase, the stronger minimum benefits, the tax relief, and these really humane reforms to SSI, it's clear we're not just talking about a small adjustment. We're talking about fundamentally redrawing the map of financial security for millions of Americans.
And that really is the big story here. This whole suite of reforms is designed to move millions of people from a state of just surviving to a state of stability. It's about replacing anxiety with confidence and desperation with dignity. It's about giving people the financial breathing room to not just get through the day, but to actually plan for tomorrow, for next year, for the rest of their lives.
So we end with this question. Because these proposals, with all their numbers and details, they really represent a choice about what we value as a society. They present a very clear vision of a future with more security, more dignity for millions. And the question that leaves for all of us is, what kind of future will we choose to build?
Today, we are jumping right into the future of Social Security. There's a huge package of reforms being discussed that could literally transform the financial lives of millions of Americans. So, we're going to focus on the one question that really matters. What could these changes actually mean for your bank account? Let's get into it. You know, this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of what all of this is about. This isn't just about tweaking some numbers in a government program. It's about a bigger vision, about rethinking what security and quality of life should look like for our seniors and our most vulnerable citizens. It really sets the stage for everything we're about to cover. Okay, so a big vision is great, but let's get real. How does that lofty goal actually translate into dollars and cents? That's what we're here to do. We're going to break down the exact proposals to give you a super clear financial picture of what these increases could look like, month by month and year by year. All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with that big vision, then we'll break down the 3 key proposals that make it happen. After that, we'll get into the real numbers, looking at the financial impact on average retirees, low-wage workers, and SSI recipients. And finally, we'll zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So for this entire explainer, I want to be crystal clear. We are going to focus entirely on the proposed increases in benefits. Now, I know there are always complex debates about how to pay for things, but for right now, our goal is to show you the numbers, to clarify what the potential upside could look like in your pocket. We want you to see how this could be a really significant financial shift for millions. To really understand the potential impact, you first have to know where it's all coming from. There are basically 3 key bills at the center of this whole effort. So let's quickly break down what each one is trying to accomplish. First up, we've got the Social Security Expansion Act. Think of this as the foundation. Its biggest, most powerful feature is super simple. A $200 a month across-the-board increase for every single beneficiary. That's an extra $2,400 a year. For an average person, that's like getting an 11% raise overnight. It's a foundational lift for absolutely everyone. Next is the SSI Restoration Act. Now, this one is laser-focused on the 8 million elderly, blind, and disabled Americans who rely on supplemental security income. Right now, the maximum benefit actually leaves people living below the poverty line. So this act aims to fix that, straight up, by raising the benefit to 100% of the federal poverty level. It's about providing immediate, substantial relief. And the third piece of the puzzle is the Social Security 2100 Act. This is a really broad proposal, but we're going to zero in on its 2 major benefit boosts. First, some pretty significant tax relief for beneficiaries. And second, a much, much stronger minimum benefit for people who've spent their entire lives working in low-wage jobs. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. See, these proposals aren't designed to exist in a vacuum. They're meant to stack on top of each other. So let's start our financial breakdown by looking at what happens when you combine their effects for the average retiree in America today. Let's just walk through this table together. So an average retiree today gets about $1,838 a month. Okay. Under these reforms, boom, the Social Security Expansion Act immediately adds a flat $200. On top of that, that same act changes the cost of living formula, which could add another $10 to $15 a month. And then the Social Security 2100 Act kicks in with tax relief, adding another $50 to $75 to their take-home. You put it all together, and you're looking at a jump of around $300 every single month. And that monthly increase adds up fast. We're talking about an additional $3,600 in income every single year. For somebody on a fixed income, that's a 16% boost. That's not a small tweak. That is a really significant enhancement to their financial stability. But what does $3,600 a year actually do? It means you're no longer having to choose between refilling a prescription and buying a full cart of groceries. It means when the water heater breaks, it's an annoyance, not a financial disaster that shoves you into debt. It gives you the breathing room to maybe actually save a little, to plan, to visit your grandkids without feeling guilty. It's a shift from just surviving to actually living. Now, the impact on an average retiree is huge, but for those who have spent an entire lifetime in low-wage jobs, the effect is even more profound. I mean, for people who currently work for decades just to retire directly into poverty, these changes could completely redefine what retirement means. Just take a look at these numbers. A lifetime low-wage worker gets that same $200 flat increase, right? But then the new minimum benefit rules kick in, and that could add another $300 to $500 per month. You throw in some tax relief, and the total monthly increase could be between $530 and $750. In a lot of cases, that would nearly double their retirement income. Annually, this could be an increase of up to $9,000. Let that sink in. This isn't just about making things a little bit easier. This is a fundamental change that lifts a person from a state of poverty, where every single day is a struggle, to a basic level of security and dignity that actually honors a lifetime of hard work. So, what does this transformation look like in real life? It means being able to afford healthy food and consistent medical care. It means having a small cushion for emergencies, so a flat tire doesn't completely derail your entire life. For someone who has worked for decades in physically demanding jobs for very little pay, this provides a level of security in their later years that was probably unimaginable before. It's a profound shift. Now let's turn to the 8 million Americans who get supplemental security income. For this group, which includes many of our most vulnerable elderly and disabled citizens, the proposed changes from the SSI Restoration Act would be, and I don't say this lightly, truly life-altering. The most direct change is a big benefit increase. The current max benefit is $943 a month, which is below the poverty line. The proposal would raise that to $1,255. That's an immediate increase of $312 a month, a 33% boost, specifically designed to lift recipients up to 100% of the federal poverty level. This annual increase of over $3,700 represents the financial line between living in poverty and having a basic level of dignity. It provides the resources for stable housing, for consistent nutrition, things that are a constant struggle for so many people right now. But the proposed changes go way beyond the monthly check. This one is huge. The current asset limit for SSI recipients is just $2,000, a number that hasn't changed since 1984. You're basically penalized for saving. The proposal raises this limit to $10,000 and ties it to inflation. This is a monumental shift, allowing people to build a real emergency fund for the first time without the fear of losing their essential benefits. And then there's this other major change, which addresses the marriage penalty. Right now, it's wild. If two people on SSI get married, their combined benefit gets cut by about 25%. It forces this horrible choice between a partnership and financial survival. This proposal just eliminates that penalty completely. So a married couple's benefit could jump from a penalized $1,415 a month to a full $2,510. That's a 77% increase. It affirms the right to build a life together without financial punishment. So, when you step back and you look at all these proposed changes together, the across-the-board increases, the stronger minimum benefits, the relief for SSI recipients, the potential impact is just immense. The entire financial security landscape in America could be fundamentally redrawn for millions and millions of people. Ultimately, the theme here, the big idea, is a shift in perspective. These reforms are all about moving people from a state of constant financial anxiety, just trying to make it through the day or the week, to a place of stability. It's about restoring dignity, choice, and the ability for millions to look ahead with a measure of confidence instead of fear. In the end, all these numbers and policies, they really lead to a much bigger question. These proposals are more than just policy tweaks. They represent a choice about our national priorities. They ask what kind of society we want to be, one that ensures dignity for people who've worked their whole lives and for those who are most vulnerable among us. So the real question is, what kind of future will we choose to build?
So what if every single person on Social Security got an extra $200 a month? Today we're diving into several major proposals that want to do exactly that, and a whole lot more. We're going to get into the precise numbers, don't worry. But this is about something much bigger than a spreadsheet. It's about a whole new vision for what financial security could look like for millions of us.
And this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of it. The whole idea behind these proposed changes is to focus on the human impact. It's not just about tweaking the numbers, it's about fundamentally changing lives for the better.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll talk about that big picture vision for security. Then we'll dive right into the details of the proposed increases. After that, we'll see what those numbers actually mean in real life. And we'll finish up by looking at what all this means beyond just the bank account.
So the first big idea here is this huge shift in thinking. The goal of these proposals isn't just to help people scrape by or merely survive. The vision is to create a future where seniors and people with disabilities can actually thrive with real financial security and dignity.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to break down the key parts of three major proposals. That's the Social Security Expansion Act, the SSI Restoration Act, and the Social Security 2100 Act. We're talking about the exact dollar amounts they want to bring to the table.
Let's start with the Social Security Expansion Act. One of its core ideas is super straightforward: a flat increase of $200 a month for every single Social Security beneficiary. No strings, just a direct boost. Now, what does that flat $200 actually look like? Well, for an average person, it's about an 11% raise. But here's where it gets really impactful. For someone getting the minimum benefit, that same $200 is more like a 21% increase. And for a retired couple, you're looking at an extra $4,800 a year. That is significant.
But it's not just a one-time boost. The Act also wants to change the formula for the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, to something called the CPIE. It's designed to better track the costs seniors actually face, like healthcare. And the effect of this just grows over time. After 10 years, it's an extra $72 a month. But fast forward 20 years, and it's an extra $181 a month. That adds up to about $22,000 in extra benefits over 2 decades.
And this next part is a really big deal. Another key goal is to pull people out of poverty by setting a brand new, higher minimum benefit for folks who've worked their whole lives at low wages. The proposal would set this new floor at 125% of the federal poverty level. That means going from about $950 a month to $1,500. That is a nearly 58% jump. Huge.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. This is the program that supports some of our most vulnerable Americans, and the SSI Restoration Act is proposing some major updates here.
So this proposal really tackles two massive issues. First, it would raise the monthly benefit up to the federal poverty line. Second, and this is wild, it would update the asset limit for the first time since 1984. Think about that. It would go from just $2,000 to $10,000. That means people could actually save for an emergency without getting kicked off their benefits.
Now here's something in the current SSI system that a lot of people find shocking. It's often called the marriage penalty. Right now, if two people on SSI decide to get married, their combined benefit gets cut by 25%. We're talking a drop from nearly $1,900 a month down to just over $1,400. That's an annual loss of more than $5,600.
So, the SSI Restoration Act has a very simple solution. Get rid of it. Completely. Under the proposed new benefit rates, a married couple would get the exact same amount as two unmarried people. No penalty. You get married, your benefits stay the same. Simple as that.
And finally, let's look at the Social Security 2100 Act, which focuses on some serious tax relief. Right now, your benefits can start getting taxed if your income is over just $25,000 for an individual or $32,000 for a couple. This proposal would double that threshold for single folks to $50,000 and more than triple it for couples to $100,000. For millions of seniors, this is basically another pay raise because their benefits would suddenly become tax-free.
Whew. Okay, so we've just thrown a ton of numbers at you. What does all of this actually mean for someone's wallet at the end of the month? Let's connect these proposals to the reality of everyday life and see what the combined impact really looks like.
For your average retiree, when you combine that $200 monthly boost with the tax savings, you could be looking at an extra $283 to $325 a month. That's not just a number on a page. That's your prescription copays covered, that's your utility bill, that's a few weeks of groceries. It creates real breathing room in a tight budget.
Now, for a lifetime low-wage worker, the effect is absolutely life-altering. You see it happen in stages. First, that $200 increase brings them up to $1,150. Then, that new minimum benefit floor kicks in and lifts them all the way up to $1,500 a month. All told, that's an increase of over 60%. It's literally a ladder out of poverty.
And for a married couple with disabilities, the change is just staggering. By getting rid of that marriage penalty and raising the benefits, their monthly income could leap from around $1,400 to over $2,500. That's a 77% increase. And at the same time, their savings limit would jump from $3,000 to $20,000.
But you know, this whole story isn't just about the money. You can't just measure the impact in dollars and cents. Let's zoom back out and talk about the human side of all this. What does this kind of security really mean for a person's well-being?
One of the biggest goals here is relief. Relief from that constant low-level hum of anxiety that comes with financial instability. It's about being able to answer the phone without fearing it's a bill collector. It's about being able to go to the doctor when you're sick, not just when it's an emergency. It creates peace of mind.
And that brings us to the dignity of choice. You see, poverty shrinks your world. It takes away your options. When you have enough, you can make choices based on your health and well-being, not just on what's cheapest. You can choose to buy fresh, healthy food. You can choose to get preventative care. It puts people back in control of their own lives.
And that idea of control extends to our most basic human relationships. Supporters of these changes see eliminating the marriage penalty as a fundamental human rights issue. The argument is simple. People with disabilities should be able to marry for love without the government slapping them with a devastating financial punishment for it.
So let's wrap this all up. What's the big picture? These proposals are aiming for a totally new level of financial security. We're talking monthly increases from a couple hundred to over $1,000, new benefit floors to lift millions from poverty, much higher savings limits, and an end to the SSI marriage penalty. It's all about restoring dignity and dialing down that daily anxiety.
We've been through all the detailed numbers, the specific plans, and the profound human impact, and it leaves us with this final thought. What could this kind of security truly unlock for millions of Americans, for their families, and for all of our communities? What does a future where we move from just surviving to actually thriving, what does that really look like?
Today, we're diving deep into some major Social Security reforms that are being talked about right now. These proposals could literally change the entire financial picture for millions of people. We're going to get into the specific dollar amounts, the different plans on the table, and what it all could actually mean for you. So, let's start with a feeling I think a lot of people know all too well. You know, it's that pit in your stomach at the end of the month, looking at the bills piling up, looking at what's left, and just wondering, how am I going to make this stretch? That constant stress is exactly what these new proposals are trying to fix. All right, so to make this super clear, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about the big idea, the promise behind all of this. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the plans for Social Security and for SSI. And finally, we'll piece it all together to see what your new financial reality could look like. Okay, let's jump in. Before we even get to the numbers, it's really important to get what the goal is here. The whole point of these reforms is to close that massive gap between what people get in their benefits and what it actually costs to live today. It's all about building a bridge from financial struggle to financial security. This right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it. This isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about getting rid of that constant nagging anxiety. You know, the freedom to just live your life without worrying that one small emergency, one flat tire, could derail everything. It's about moving from just surviving to actually feeling stable. So how exactly would these plans build that kind of stability? Well, let's look at the first big proposal, which is all about a simple idea: putting more money directly into your pocket every single month. The first piece of the puzzle we're looking at is called the Social Security Expansion Act, and its main goal is super straightforward: to increase the monthly benefit check for every single person receiving Social Security, no exceptions. So what's the headline number? It's a flat increase of $200 a month. And what's really key here is that this isn't some complicated formula. It's an across-the-board boost for every single recipient. But let's be real. what does 200 bucks actually mean in day-to-day life? Well, for a lot of people, that could be a full week of groceries. It could cover your prescription copays for the month, or maybe the entire utility bill. It could mean a small emergency, like your glasses breaking, is just an inconvenience, not a full-blown crisis. And if you zoom out and look at the whole year, that $200 a month adds up to an extra $2,400. Now that's a serious amount of money. That could be what you need for some major dental work you've been putting off, or maybe even a trip to finally go visit your grandkids. Okay, stick with me because this next part's a little technical, but it's so important. The proposal also wants to fix the annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA. Right now, it's calculated based on what younger working people spend, but seniors spend way more on things like healthcare, right? So this plan would switch to a new formula, the CPIE, that actually reflects what seniors spend their money on. In simple terms, it would likely mean bigger, more realistic benefit increases each year. All right, next up, we're shifting gears to look at some proposed reforms for supplemental security income, or SSI. And for folks on SSI, the changes we're about to talk about are, well, they're even more dramatic. Supporters say this is about restoring the original promise of the program. So right now, the maximum federal SSI benefit is around $943 a month. The problem, that's actually below the federal poverty line. This SSI Restoration Act would raise that benefit to over $1,250. That's a jump of more than $300 a month, and it's designed specifically to lift people out of poverty. But it's not just about the monthly check. These reforms also try to fix some really old rules that, frankly, just don't make sense anymore. And one of the biggest ones is something called the marriage penalty. You're not going to believe this, but under the current rules, if two people on SSI get married, their combined benefit is actually cut by about $471 a month. I mean, think about that. It forces people to choose between their relationship and their financial survival. The proposal? It's simple. It gets rid of that penalty completely. And here's another rule that feels like it's stuck in the past, the asset limit. Right now, a person on SSI can't have more than $2,000 in assets. That limit hasn't been updated since 1984. The proposal would raise it to $10,000, which would let people actually save up a real emergency fund for when life happens.
Okay, so beyond those direct benefit boosts, there's a third major proposal in the mix. It's called the Social Security 2100 Act, and it takes a much broader look at the whole system. It's about strengthening Social Security for decades to come, while also making some really important tweaks to benefits and taxes.
First off, it focuses on people who worked their whole lives in really essential but low-wage jobs. This act would create a new, higher minimum benefit. The bottom line is, if you have 30 years of work under your belt, you'd be guaranteed a retirement benefit that's actually above the poverty line. And second, this is a big one. It would mean a pretty significant tax cut for a lot of beneficiaries. Under this plan, if you're single and your total income is under $50,000 a year, or if you're married and it's under $100,000, you wouldn't have to pay any federal income tax on your benefits. Now, to pay for all this, the act would also have the Social Security payroll tax apply to earners over $400,000.
Okay, that was a lot of information, I know. We've talked about the Expansion Act, the SSI Restoration Act, and the 2100 Act. So what happens when you start to put all these pieces of the puzzle together? What could life actually look like?
See, these proposals aren't necessarily an either-or situation. You can think of them as different layers of a much stronger financial safety net. You've got the extra $200 a month from the Expansion Act, you've got the huge upgrades to SSI, and the tax cuts from the 2100 Act. And there's actually one more piece that's been talked about for some more immediate help. On top of all those permanent changes, there has also been serious discussion about a one-time stimulus payment of $1,400. This would be for immediate relief, money to help people finally catch up on those past due bills, handle a major car repair, or get some medical care they've had to put off. This table really brings it all home. The goal of all these proposals is to create a massive shift from a life where you're just struggling to get by to one with real stability. Moving from a world where covering the basics is a daily fight to one where the bills get paid with less stress, where you can actually have a cushion for the unexpected, and where you can look to the future with some security. And that gets us back to the ultimate goal here. Yeah, the numbers are important. That extra money could be a game changer, but the intended impact goes so much deeper. It's about lifting that heavy weight of constant financial stress, which we all know can impact your health, your sleep, your relationships, everything. So, we'll leave you with this to think about. Now, it's super important to remember these are all just proposals for now. They have a long way to go before becoming law, but they do paint a picture of a very different future, one where retirement and disability don't have to mean poverty and stress, but instead could mean the security and dignity that their supporters believe everyone truly deserves.
You know, tens of millions of Americans depend on Social Security and SSI. And right now there are a couple of major proposals on the table that could change those benefits in a really big way. So we're going to break down the hard numbers and see what these plans could actually mean for your wallet, for your budget, and honestly for your peace of mind. Let's dive in.
Just look at this number for a second. $70. Now, I want you to imagine that after you've paid your rent, your electric bill, your groceries, your prescriptions, all the absolute must-pays, this is what you have left. Not for the week, for the entire month. What could you even do with that? Could you grab a coffee with a friend? Get a birthday gift for your grandkid? What if your car gets a flat tire? For way too many people, the answer to those questions is a really stressful no way.
And that $70 scenario? That's not just some hypothetical exercise we're doing. For millions of seniors and folks with disabilities who are living on a fixed income, that is their reality, month in and month out. It's this constant, grinding financial squeeze that forces them to make impossible choices every single day. Let's break down exactly how this happens.
So, on average, a Social Security recipient gets about $1,900 a month. Seems okay, right? But watch how fast it just evaporates. Right off the top, over a third of it, poof, gone, just for housing. Then you add in the other basics, utilities, groceries, getting around. But here's the real budget breaker for so many, healthcare. We're talking over $550 a month between general costs and prescriptions. And after all that is said and done, you're left with $70. There is zero room for error, a broken microwave, a new pair of glasses. Forget about it. That is the squeeze, right there in black and white.
So, just how critical is this income? Well, this chart says it all. For a whopping 40% of seniors, Social Security makes up at least half of their entire income. And then look at the smaller slice, 14%. For them, Social Security is basically everything they have. We're talking 90% or more of their income. So for this group, it isn't just some safety net, it's their entire livelihood. And that's why any change to it, no matter how small it seems, has absolutely massive consequences.
Okay, so with that pretty stark reality in mind, let's turn to the potential solutions that are actually being discussed. There are two key pieces of legislation out there designed specifically to deal with this financial pressure cooker: the Social Security Expansion Act and the SSI Restoration Act.
Let's look at what these two acts would actually do. On one hand, the Social Security Expansion Act is pretty straightforward. It would give an extra $200 a month to every single person receiving Social Security. That's a flat increase of $2,400 a year. Pretty significant. On the other hand, the SSI Restoration Act has a different focus. It's about supplemental security income, and its goal is to pull recipients out of poverty by raising their benefits up to the official federal poverty line. For some of our most vulnerable citizens, that would be an immediate, life-changing increase.
When you strip away all the legislative jargon and the dollar figures, the mission behind both of these proposals is actually really simple and profoundly human. It's about changing a life filled with constant financial anxiety, where every single expense feels like a potential crisis, into a life where people can actually afford what they need, maybe plan a little for the unexpected, and just live with a basic sense of security and dignity. To really see what that means, let's look at a real-world example.
All right, so all these policies and numbers can feel a little abstract, so let's make it tangible. I want you to meet Margaret. She's 72, and she relies completely on her Social Security income. Her story is going to show us what this shift from stress to security actually looks like on a personal level.
This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? These aren't choices about luxuries. This isn't should I go out to dinner or save for a vacation. For Margaret, and for millions of people just like her, the choice is between two absolute necessities: food or medicine. It's an impossible daily calculation that just creates this constant level of stress, which, as you can imagine, takes a huge physical and emotional toll.
Okay, here's the breakdown of Margaret's monthly budget. Her total income is $1,650, but after she pays for rent, utilities, food, and her health care, she's left with just $120 for the entire month. That has to cover everything else: toiletries, clothes, any extra doctor copays. A single unexpected car problem would be a complete financial disaster. There is just no breathing room. Now, let's see what happens when we apply the Social Security Expansion Act to her budget. Her income immediately jumps by that $200, up to $1,850. And look at the incredible differences makes. Her main expenses, like rent and medicine, they stay the same. But look at the changes she can finally make. She can increase her grocery budget by $70. That's the line item for dignity right there. It means she can now afford the fresh fruits and vegetables her doctor's been telling her to eat. But the biggest change, the real game changer, is this new line item, an emergency fund. For the very first time, Margaret can actually put away $100 each month. This completely transforms her financial world from just reacting to crises to actually planning ahead. And even after all that, she still has $150 left over. This is what stability looks like.
So when we ask, what does $200 really buy? The answer isn't just a list of things. It's the freedom to not have to make that impossible choice between food and medicine. It's the ability to plan for the future instead of just dreading it. It's being able to buy a new pair of shoes without having a panic attack. But really, at the end of the day, what it truly buys is the one thing that's priceless: peace of mind. That reduction in daily stress is worth everything.
But the impact of these proposed increases doesn't just stop with one person's budget. It's not just Margaret's story. It actually creates this positive ripple effect that can make entire communities stronger. Here's how that ripple effect works. First, local economies get a real boost. Seniors tend to spend that extra money right in their own communities, at the local grocery store, the pharmacy, the corner auto shop. Second, and this is a big one, it can actually help lower healthcare costs for everyone. Why? Because better nutrition and people taking their medication consistently means fewer expensive preventable trips to the emergency room. And finally, it strengthens the very fabric of the community. When seniors aren't totally consumed by financial stress, they have the energy and the freedom to contribute more, whether it's volunteering or just being active in local groups.
So you see, this isn't just about helping one group of people. Investing in the financial security of our seniors and those with disabilities is really a strategy for creating more vibrant, more stable, and more prosperous local economies for all of us. A senior's personal victory over financial stress becomes a shared victory for their entire town.
And all of this brings us to the final fundamental question here. We've seen the numbers, and they're pretty clear. A couple of $100 a month can be the difference between a life of constant grinding stress and one of basic stability, health, and dignity. The debate around these proposals really boils down to this. What value do we as a society place on making sure that the people who contributed for a lifetime can live their later years with some security? What is the price of dignity, and who is responsible for ensuring it?
If you've been keeping an eye on the news about benefits, your head is probably spinning, right? You're hearing about a $2,400 boost over here, and then $1,200 monthly checks over there. It's a total whirlwind, and honestly, it's super confusing. So what we're going to do right now is slice through all that noise. We're going to break down exactly what these plans are, who they're actually for, and what it all could mean for your wallet.
So yeah, let's really get into this, because this is the big one, isn't it? Are these numbers part of the same plan? Or are we talking about two totally separate things? And, the question I bet you're really asking is, hey, could I get both? It's so easy to see how these things get tangled up in the headlines, but trust me, they are two very, very different ideas. Our goal here is simple. We're going to give you the clarity you've been looking for. You'll know exactly what each plan is and what it's not.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll talk about this flood of proposals out there. Then we'll dig into Plan 1, that's the $2,400 boost. After that, Plan 2, the $1,200 monthly checks. Then, the one you're waiting for, can you get both? And we'll wrap up by looking at the bigger picture, why all this is happening right now.
All right, Section 1, a flood of proposals. Let's try to make some sense of all the different plans being discussed. I mean, it really feels like every single week there's a new idea or a new bill being talked about, right? So let's just categorize them a bit to figure out what's what.
It's so easy to get lost in all the headlines. And you might have even seen some of these ideas pop up in your local news. There are all kinds of city and state-level programs being tested out. But for today, to keep things simple and focused, we are zeroing in on the two big ones, the major national proposals. Because, let's face it, those are the ones that would affect everybody.
Okay, before we get any deeper, we've got to clear something up. There's some key jargon here, GBI and UBI. Guaranteed basic income versus universal basic income. They sound similar, but they are not the same thing. Think of it like this. UBI, the U stands for universal, means everybody gets it. Rich, poor, everyone, no questions asked. GBI, on the other hand, that G is for guaranteed, but only for a specific group of people, usually based on their income.
The big national plans we're talking about today, they're GBI. All right, on to Section 2. Let's talk about Plan 1, the $2,400 boost. This is all about the Social Security Expansion Act. And the first thing to know is, this isn't some brand new payment program. Nope. This is all about boosting an existing one. We're talking about a direct increase to Social Security benefits. So, the magic number everyone's talking about is this, an extra $2,400 a year. Now, what does that really mean? It means an extra $200 every single month. And look, for anyone on a fixed income, you know that $200 isn't just pocket change. That's a huge deal. That could cover groceries for the week, a utility bill, or those annoying copays. It's a real, tangible difference, and it's the heart of this proposal.
So how would this thing actually work? Well, the official name is the Social Security Expansion Act. You've probably heard lawmakers like Senator Bernie Sanders talking about it, and here's who it's for. As the bill's written right now, it's for all Social Security beneficiaries. That means retirement, disability, survivors, the whole shebang. And the other critical piece of the puzzle is the funding. Where does the money come from? It would come from the Social Security system itself, funded by payroll taxes through the Social Security Trust Fund.
Okay, now let's switch gears completely for Section 3. We're looking at Plan 2, those $1,200 monthly checks. And this is a whole different ballgame. We're no longer talking about tweaking an existing program. This is about creating something brand new from the ground up, a national guaranteed basic income. And the numbers here are even bigger. We're talking $1,200 every single month for each eligible adult, plus another $600 for each dependent. I mean, let's do the math. That's over $14,000 a year for one person. For a couple, you're looking at almost $29,000 before you even add in dependents. A key piece of legislation here is called the Support Act, and the whole idea is to create a recurring payment like a national income floor for people.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. How would this GBI plan work? Well, a major difference right off the bat, eligibility has nothing to do with being in a specific program like Social Security. Nope, it's all about your income. The Support Act, for instance, sets the cutoff at around $75,000 for an individual. The funding is also totally separate. This money isn't coming from the Social Security Trust Fund, it would come from general federal funds. Think of it like the stimulus checks we saw a few years back. Same kind of idea.
Okay, let's put these two plans side by side. This is where the light bulb really goes on. You've got the Social Security boost, that's an increase to a benefit you already have, for Social Security beneficiaries only, and paid for by the Social Security Fund. Then you've got the National GBI, that's a brand new program for people based on their income and paid for with general federal money. See? They're like two different trains running on two separate tracks. Getting this difference is absolutely crucial for what comes next.
Which, of course, brings us to Section 4, and the question that I know is on your mind. Could you get both payments? If both of these proposals actually became law, could one person get money from both? Let's find out.
So let's really spell it out. Could a fixed income beneficiary get payments from both of these proposals at the same time? Imagine you're on Social Security. The first plan passes, boom, you get an extra $200 a month. Then the second plan passes, and your income qualifies you. Could you also get that $1,200 check on top of it? That's the million-dollar question, right?
And the answer is yes. Simple as that. Based on how these proposals are written right now, you absolutely could. I know, it might sound a little too good to be true, but when you see how they're designed, the logic is actually rock solid. So why isn't this double dipping? It really boils down to two super simple reasons. First, they are separate programs. They just are. One is a tweak to your Social Security, and the other is a totally new income program. They don't overlap. And second, and this is huge, they have separate funding. Remember, one is paid from the Social Security Trust Fund, the other from general federal funds. It's like getting your paycheck from your job and also winning a lottery prize. Two different pots of money. So that leads us to our last section, the future of benefits. You have to wonder, right? Why are these huge conversations happening right now? The answer is pretty interesting. It's because a lot of folks in Washington aren't just looking at today, they're looking down the road, 5, 10 years from now.
See, the argument is that lawmakers are looking ahead, and they believe a national income floor is needed before it's too late. The idea is that our economy is about to go through a massive, massive change because of technology. And the people pushing for these plans are saying, look, we need to build this safety net now, before things get crazy. It's about being proactive instead of just reacting to a crisis after it's already here.
And you can hear that urgency when they talk about what's coming. They say things like, we're going to be completely overrun by AI, sophisticated technology, robotics, automation. And that's really the heart of it. The fear is that all this new tech is going to eliminate a ton of jobs, and soon. The thinking is that this isn't science fiction anymore. This is a real economic shift that's just around the corner, and something like a GBI might be the only thing that provides some stability. And really, that leaves us with the biggest question of all. As technology reshapes the entire workforce, how must our economic safety nets evolve? Because at the end of the day, this whole debate isn't just about a specific dollar amount. It's not just about $2,400 or $1,200. The real conversation is about what our safety nets are even for. As technology changes the very definition of a job, how do we make sure everyone has some level of economic security? That's the question that's really pushing all of this forward.
We're going to talk about some really hopeful, really tangible changes that could completely transform your monthly budget. But more than that, it's about restoring a sense of security and dignity. This is your path forward. So let's just start with a simple question. What if an extra $200 just showed up in your account every single month? No strings attached. Just take a second and think about it. What would that change for you? You know, that $200 a month, it really adds up. We're talking about an extra $2,400 a year. And that's not just some number on a screen. That's a real resource for the things that matter most to you and your family. Okay, so let's get into it. Where does this new income actually come from? We're going to break down these proposed increases piece by piece so you can see exactly how the numbers could add up to a huge change in your financial reality. First up, let's talk about the Social Security Expansion Act. The idea is to move the average monthly benefit from around $1,905 to $2,105. And the key takeaway here, it's a straightforward, across-the-board $200 monthly increase for every single person receiving Social Security. Next, let's look at Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. Now, the SSI Restoration Act is trying to do something really fundamental, lift benefits up to 100% of the federal poverty line. This would mean about a $130 increase each month, finally moving folks from below the poverty line to just above it. And, the changes go way beyond just the monthly check. For decades, if you were on SSI, you couldn't save more than $2,000 without losing your benefits. It was impossible to build a safety net. This proposal dramatically increases those limits to $10,000 for an individual, finally letting people build a small emergency fund without being penalized. So we've seen all the numbers. But what do they actually mean for your day-to-day life? This is where we get to the heart of it, how those dollars translate directly into dignity. $200 isn't just a number. It's real stuff. It's tangible. It could be 40 gallons of milk, or maybe it covers 10 of your doctor's copays. It could pay for 3 months of internet access, or just mean you can finally afford fresh fruits and vegetables every week. But you know what it really buys? Peace of mind. This quote, wow, it just perfectly captures the reality for so many people. Let me tell you about Margaret. Her story really highlights the impossible choices that millions of seniors on fixed incomes are forced to make every single day. So before any increase, just look at Margaret's budget. It's on a knife's edge. All the essentials, housing, healthcare, food, they eat up almost everything. And see that tiny little sliver? Just 7%? That's all that's left for an emergency, a new pair of shoes, or any small comfort in life. But look what happens with that extra $200. Her budget isn't just bigger, it's healthier. That little slice for everything else more than doubles. That isn't just money, my friends. That is breathing room. That's the ability to handle a surprise car repair without having to sacrifice your medicine. For Margaret, this change means she doesn't have to choose between food and medication anymore. She can actually manage her health properly and have a small cushion for emergencies. This is about so much more than money. It's about restoring the dignity that every single person deserves. Now, these proposed improvements, they don't just exist in a vacuum. They actually build on some recent victories that are already providing real, lasting relief and creating a much stronger foundation for long-term security. Let's take a look at what's already been accomplished. A huge win was the Social Security Fairness Act. See, for years, these rules called WEP and GPO unfairly cut the benefits of public servants, people like teachers and firefighters, just because they also had a public pension. Well, this act finally repealed those rules, restoring the full earned benefits that these folks were entitled to all along. And here's another massive victory, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This recently passed law created a major new tax deduction for seniors. We're talking an extra $6,000 for single filers and $12,000 for married couples. That is a direct boost to their take-home income. And the impact of that law, it's profound.
I want you to think about this for a second. Because of these changes, a staggering 88% of all Social Security recipients will now owe zero. That's right, zero in federal income tax on their benefits. This is a monumental shift that provides immediate relief for millions.
You know, these financial changes are so important because they give you the security you need to appreciate what really matters. So for this last part, let's look beyond the bank account at the real foundation of your worth and the future you're building.
Financial security isn't the end goal, right? It's the foundation. It provides the stability that lets the things that define your true worth really shine. The wisdom you've gained from a lifetime of experience, the relationships you've built, the contributions you've made, and the incredible resilience you've shown time and time again. It is so important to remember this. Your value as a person, the impact you've had, the legacy you've created, none of that can be measured in dollars and cents. Your worth extends far, far beyond your bank account. So as we close out, I just want to leave you with this question to think about. With the promise of greater financial stability and with the recognition of your inherent value, what will your future of dignity look like? It's a future you've absolutely earned, and it is filled with hope. You know, there's so much talk about increasing Social Security and SSI benefits, but what does that actually mean for the millions of people who depend on them every single month? Today, we're going to go way beyond the headlines. We're going to break down the real numbers, see the impact on a monthly budget, and get a feel for what this kind of financial uplift could truly look like. Let's dive in. All right, so let's start with this number, $1,905. Right now, this is the average monthly benefit for a retired worker on Social Security. And for so many people, this isn't just some extra cash. It's their entire income. It's the number that has to cover absolutely everything: rent, food, healthcare, you name it. So the big question is, in today's economy, how far does this money actually go? Well, take a look at how fast that average benefit just disappears. Based on national averages, housing and utilities alone can take up nearly $800. Then you have groceries and healthcare, that's another $700. After you factor in just basic transportation, you're left with $70. $70 for the entire month. For a car repair, a new pair of glasses, a birthday gift for a grandchild, I mean, it is a razor-thin margin with absolutely zero room for anything unexpected. So, to really get the full picture, here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to look a little closer at that fixed income reality. Then, we'll introduce two key proposals that are designed to change it. We'll spend most of our time visualizing the direct financial impact of these proposed changes. After that, we'll look at how these increases would be funded. And finally, we'll boil it all down to the bottom line on what this all means for benefits. Okay, so let's start with that fixed income reality. That $70 margin we just saw, that isn't just a number on a chart. For a huge part of our population, it's a daily source of stress and incredibly difficult choices. The financial pressure is just immense, and for a lot of people, Social Security is the only thing standing between them and actual poverty. And these figures right here really show you just how vital these benefits are. For over 40% of women and almost as many men over 65, Social Security makes up more than half of their income. Just let that sink in for a second. And for 15%, that's about 1 in 7 seniors, it makes up over 90% of their income. So we're not just talking about tweaking a budget here. For millions of people, a change to this benefit fundamentally alters their ability to survive. Okay, so what are the proposed solutions on the table? Well, there are several pieces of legislation aiming to tackle this financial strain head-on. We're going to focus on 2 of them, and each one proposes a really clear and significant increase to those monthly benefits. All right, the first piece of legislation is called the Social Security Expansion Act. It's a pretty comprehensive bill, but its most direct, most immediate impact really comes down to one key number. And here it is. This act proposes a very straightforward, across-the-board increase of $200 per month. And that's for every single Social Security recipient, whether they're retired, disabled, or survivors. That works out to an extra $2,400 a year. Now, this isn't your typical cost of living adjustment that changes every year. This is a direct, fixed boost to that base benefit, and it's aimed at providing immediate relief. Now, the second proposal we're looking at is the SSI Restoration Act. This one targets a different, but often overlapping, group of vulnerable Americans. Now, before we get to the numbers on this one, it's really important to clarify what SSI actually is. Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, is a federal program that basically provides a financial floor for adults and children with significant disabilities or for seniors over 65 who have very, very little income and few assets. It's an absolutely crucial safety net, but as we're about to see, the current benefit level often falls way short of covering just the basic needs. The SSI Restoration Act aims to fix that by increasing the maximum monthly benefit by about $130, which would bring it up to $1,073. The goal here is really specific and significant: to lift the benefit to 100% of the federal poverty line, making sure the most vulnerable people in our country are no longer forced to live below it. And this is the heart of our explainer. Because, knowing the proposed numbers is one thing, but seeing how they can completely transform a real-world budget, that's something else entirely. So let's apply these increases to the financial situations we looked at earlier and see just what changes. Okay, let's go back to our average senior's budget. Remember, before the proposed change, they had an income of $1,905, and after covering necessities, they were left with just $70. Now let's add that proposed $200. The monthly income jumps to $2,105. The cost of necessities, that stays the same at $1,835. But just look at the difference in the bottom line. The remaining funds leap from $70 to $270.
And that right there is the key takeaway. That $270 isn't just a number. It's a transformation. It's the difference between constant anxiety and actually having a small cushion. It's being able to afford fresh produce instead of just canned goods. It's the money to fill a prescription without having to cut back on groceries. It's the freedom to handle a minor emergency without going into debt. We're talking about a nearly four-fold increase in discretionary funds, which would fundamentally change someone's quality of life.
Now let's do the same thing for an SSI recipient's budget. The current maximum benefit is $943 a month. With necessities costing around $920, that leaves a perilous $23. The SSI Restoration Act would increase that total income to $1,073. Again, necessities stay the same, but the remaining funds, they jump from just $23 to $153. I mean, this is absolutely life-changing. It means being able to afford new glasses, or replacing worn-out shoes, or simply having a small emergency fund for the very first time. It's a move from pure survival mode to a state of basic stability. Of course, the natural and very important question that follows all this is, how would we pay for these increases? Well, the proposals don't just create new spending, they also outline specific ways to make sure the program stays solvent for the long haul. So let's take a look at that side of the equation. So the proposal outlines two key changes to make sure it's funded. First, a direct funding source, applying the Social Security payroll tax to all income above $250,000. Right now, there's a cap, which means high-income earners stop paying into the system partway through the year. This change would simply ask the nation's highest earners to contribute more. The second part is a change to how benefits are calculated in the future, proposing a whole new inflation metric for adjustments. Now, this second point, it might sound a little technical, but it is absolutely crucial for long-term stability. It's called the CPIE, or the Consumer Price Index for the Elderly. It's designed to more accurately measure the inflation that seniors actually experience. Now, why does that matter? Well, it's because seniors spend a much larger chunk of their income on healthcare than everybody else, and healthcare costs rise much faster. So, by using the CPIE to calculate future cost of living adjustments, or COLAs, the annual increases would better keep up with the real-world expenses that people face, preventing them from losing purchasing power over time.
Okay, so we've walked through the problem, the proposals, the impact, and the funding. Let's bring it all together and really summarize the bottom line. What are the most essential takeaways from all this financial info?
At the end of the day, it really comes down to these two numbers: a proposed $200 monthly increase for Social Security recipients and a proposed $130 monthly increase for SSI recipients. These aren't just abstract percentages. They are fixed dollar amounts designed to provide immediate, predictable relief to millions of Americans living on fixed incomes. And that really is the fundamental purpose here. The aim is to move beyond complex formulas for a minute and just deliver a simple, powerful boost to people's income. The goal is to create more breathing room in those tight budgets, to reduce financial stress, and to restore a measure of dignity and security for everyone who relies on these programs. And that leaves us with a final thought to consider. Beyond the immediate impact on individual budgets, how might a direct, significant, and fixed increase in benefits change the entire conversation we have about retirement security and the social safety net in this country? It's really a question about what we value and what level of security we believe every person deserves after a lifetime of work or when they're facing a severe disability.
The $2,200 bonus check.
Before we even get to the nuts and bolts, let's just start with the one question that's really at the heart of this entire debate. When you think about a Social Security check, is it a nice little bonus on top of everything else, or is it an absolute necessity, the money you need to survive? It turns out the answer to that question might have everything to do with the actual dollar amount on the check.
Okay, let's dive right into this first part and get to the core of the proposal. It really all comes down to this one number that basically acts as a dividing line.
And here it is. The key number in this whole plan is $2,200 a month. You can think of it as a conceptual line in the sand. This is the threshold that, according to the proposal's research, really separates two completely different ways people experience their Social Security benefits.
Now you might be thinking, okay, $2,200, is that high, is that low? Well, here's the context that makes it so interesting. The average Social Security benefit for a retiree right now is just a little under $2,000 a month. So this proposed line in the sand isn't some far-off high-income number. It's actually really, really close to what the average American is getting today.
So why that number specifically? Where did $2,200 come from? Well, the logic behind it all comes from studies that found beneficiaries tend to fall into two very distinct camps, and it all depends on which side of that line their monthly check falls.
The data paints a picture of two different worlds. For people getting less than that $2,200 threshold, their payment is what you'd call a necessity check. I mean, this is the money they count on for rent, for groceries, for the basics. But for those getting more than $2,200 a month, the story changes. They are much more likely to have other sources of income, right? Things like pensions, 401ks, investments. So for them, the Social Security check feels less like a lifeline and more like a bonus. It's a nice extra, but it's not what's keeping the lights on.
And this quote right here, it just nails the core idea that's powering this whole proposal. It's a pretty simple observation, right? The more money someone gets from Social Security, the less they tend to rely on it, and the more it starts to feel like bonus cash. That single idea is the justification for this entire reform.
All right, so we get the why behind this dividing line. We see the logic. But what about the how? What are the actual mechanics here? How would a plan like this work in the real world?
Okay, so the plan basically unfolds in 3 steps. First, it would gradually start to reduce the monthly benefits paid out to the highest earners. Step 2, and this is a really big one, it would limit how much of the annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA, that those high earners get. So their benefits would grow a lot slower. And third, and this is crucial, the money saved from those first 2 steps doesn't just disappear. It would be directly reallocated to boost the checks for the lower income folks.
So, and this is probably the most important thing to get about this plan. This is not about cutting Social Security spending overall. Not at all. It's about an internal redistribution. The whole idea is to shift funds from the people who see it as a bonus over to the people who desperately need it as a necessity. It's about strengthening the safety net for the people who need it most, using the money that's already in the system.
But what's the end game? I mean, this isn't just about a few tweaks here and there. There's a much bigger, long-term vision. And that vision is to reach a state they call equilibrium. Let's take a look at what that actually means. So what on earth is equilibrium? Well, the long-term goal is to dramatically narrow the gap between the biggest Social Security checks and the smallest ones. The idea is that over time, by giving more to those at the bottom and slowing the growth for those at the top, all the benefit payments would slowly start to converge towards some kind of middle ground.
Now, I've got to stress, this isn't something that would happen overnight, not even close. The proposal lays out a very slow, very gradual process. It could take 20 years, maybe even longer, to get there. You'd move from the big disparities we have today through a decade or more of slow reallocation until you eventually hit that projected state of equilibrium.
Okay, as you can probably imagine, a plan this radical faces some serious pushback. And the main criticism isn't just about the numbers. It's a deep, philosophical question about what this change would fundamentally turn Social Security into.
The big fear for critics is that by pushing all benefits towards this equilibrium point, you're essentially transforming Social Security into a form of guaranteed basic income, or GBI. And a GBI is a totally different animal. It's a system where everyone gets a standard payment from the government, no matter what they paid in. That idea runs completely counter to the way Social Security was originally designed.
Let's really break down this critique. The number one concern is that this plan changes Social Security's entire purpose. It would shift it from being an earned benefit, something you get based on your work history, to being a needs-based program, kind of like welfare. Critics also point out a huge risk.
What if this new equilibrium benefit ends up being too low to actually help anyone? But maybe the biggest issue for them is that it completely breaks that sacred link between what you pay into the system and what you get out of it.
This table just lays out the debate perfectly. On the left, you've got Social Security as we know it today. It's an earned benefit. What you get is directly tied to your lifetime earnings. But on the right, you have this proposed new system, and its basis isn't your work history, it's need. The goal isn't to reward your contributions, it's to provide a standard floor for everybody, which means all the benefit levels eventually have to merge together.
So at the end of the day, that's what this entire proposal forces us to grapple with. It's a fundamental question about the very identity of Social Security. Is it supposed to be a safety net for everyone, making sure no one falls below a certain level? Or should it remain a reward system, a program that reflects a lifetime of hard work and contributions? The answer to that question is going to shape retirement for millions of Americans for generations to come.
Today, we are diving deep into a topic that, honestly, is at the core of financial security for millions of people. We're talking about some major proposed changes to Social Security and SSI benefits. So, we're going to break down exactly what these proposals could mean for you, for your budget, and look, this isn't just some dry policy talk. This is about real stability, real peace of mind for so many families out there.
But before we jump into all the legislative jargon, let me ask you a really simple question. Just think about it for a second. What could an extra $200 a month do for you? For real? Would that cover the grocery bill that just seems to get higher every week? Would it mean you could actually pick up all your prescriptions without having to stress about it? Maybe it's finally being able to visit the grandkids, or just, the simple relief of having a little bit of a cushion for emergencies. I want you to hold on to that thought, because that real-world difference, that's what this is all about.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the tough reality of living on a fixed income right now. Then we'll get into the exciting part, the proposed financial boost. After that, we'll see what a transformed budget actually looks like. And finally, we'll talk about how this goes way beyond just the money. It's about dignity.
All right, first up, let's ground ourselves in the numbers. Because to really get why these proposals are such a big deal, you have to see the kind of financial pressure people are under every single day.
Wow, okay, this chart right here really tells the whole story, doesn't it? Take a look. The average Social Security check is about $1,905 a month. Now, stack that up against the cost of just the basics. We're talking rent, food, healthcare, the essentials. That comes out to about $1,835. That gap? It's tiny. We're literally talking about living on a financial razor's edge.
And that tiny gap leads to this number right here, $70. After everything essential is paid for, that's what's left for the entire month. Just think about that. $70. Is that enough for new shoes when your old ones have holes? What about an unexpected copay at the pharmacy? Or a birthday gift? Or heaven forbid, a car repair? That's not a buffer. It's so small that one little thing going wrong can just completely throw you into a crisis.
And we have to remember, for so many people, Social Security isn't just some extra pocket money. No way. It's their primary lifeline. Sometimes it's the only thing they have. Look at these stats. Almost half of all women over 65 are counting on it for at least half their income. And for 12 to 15% of all seniors, it's basically 90% or more of their entire income. This isn't some abstract problem. This is the day-to-day reality for millions of people, for our parents, our neighbors, our friends.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem pretty clearly. Now let's get to the good part, the proposed solutions. There are two really key pieces of legislation on the table that are designed to tackle this financial squeeze head-on. And they each focus on a different group, but both are absolutely vital.
So the first big one is called the Social Security Expansion Act. This thing is a potential game changer. The goal is super simple and direct. Put more money into the pockets of every single person who gets Social Security. It's not some complicated, targeted thing. Nope. It's a straightforward, across-the-board increase meant to make a difference right away. And it's also designed to make sure the whole program stays healthy for the long haul.
And here's the headline number, the big kahuna, a $200 increase every month for every single person on Social Security. Do the math on that. That's an extra $2,400 a year. For one person, that could completely cover your out-of-pocket drug costs for the year, or a major car repair you've been putting off. Now, what if you're a couple and you both get benefits? That's $4,800 a year. That is not a small tweak. That is a substantial, truly life-altering increase.
Now, the second key proposal is the SSI Restoration Act.
This one has really focused on some of our most vulnerable folks, seniors, and people with disabilities who depend on SSI. The truth is, for decades, SSI benefits just haven't kept up with the cost of living, and it's basically trapped people in poverty. This act wants to fix that. It would raise benefits up to 100% of the federal poverty line, and this part is also huge. It would finally update these super outdated rules about how much you can have in savings, rules that haven't been touched more than 30 years.
So, this all leads to the most important question, right? What does this actually mean for your budget, for the real-world decisions you make at your kitchen table? How does this change the math from just scraping by to actually having some stability?
Okay, let's go back to that average budget we looked at. On the left, you've got the before picture, that income of $1905, with basics eating up $1835, leaving you with that shaky $70. Now, look at the after picture on the right. The income jumps to $2,105, the cost of necessities is the same, but what's left over? It skyrockets from $70 to $270. That's a massive jump. That's the difference between constant anxiety and actually being able to breathe. A $270 buffer means you can plan, you can save, you can just live with a whole lot less fear.
And this chart really helps you see that new reality. Yeah, of course, housing and healthcare are still the biggest pieces of the pie, but look at that new slice that pops up. 8% for quality of life. That's not just some leftover pocket change. That is a real part of the budget now. It's money you can actually use for things that make life worth living. A hobby, maybe. A trip to the museum. Taking a friend out for lunch. Or just building up that emergency fund. It's the shift from a survival budget to a living budget. A budget with dignity.
For someone on SSI, the change is even more staggering. Let's talk about Robert's story. Before, his benefit of $943 a month left him way below the poverty line, with just $23 left after covering the absolute basics. I mean, he was literally trapped. But now, look at the after. The SSI Restoration Act bumps his benefit up to $1,073. That pulls him right up to the poverty line. So maybe he spends a little more on better food, puts a tiny bit aside, and he still has $43 left. Okay, it's still tight for sure, but the change is monumental. He's no longer living in official poverty. He can buy shoes without holes in them, maybe even save up to go see his daughter. That is a profound difference.
Look, these numbers are powerful. They really are. But the real impact here, it goes so much deeper than a spreadsheet. Let's talk about what this really means for a person's day-to-day life, for their dignity.
This quote right here, this just cuts right to the heart of it. This is Margaret's reality, and it's the reality for millions of others just like her. Should she buy the fresh vegetables she needs for her health, or should she pay for her blood pressure medication? These are just impossible choices, choices nobody should ever have to make. Food or medicine, health or heat. That constant stress just grinds you down. This is the human cost, that tiny $70 buffer we talked about earlier.
So let's see how this changes things for her. Let's walk through what we're calling Margaret's new dignity budget. Her income goes up by that $200. Now look at the difference it makes. Her grocery budget goes up by $70. That's huge. It means she can actually buy the fresh produce she needs for her diabetes. She can now start a $100 emergency fund, a little financial safety net that just wasn't possible before. And instead of just hoping there's money left for clothes or soap, she has a real planned budget for it. But maybe the most important part, she has $100 budgeted for quality of life. This budget isn't just bigger, it's proactive. It's a plan for being healthy and secure, not just constantly reacting to one crisis after another. So the big question is always, okay, great, but how do you pay for it? Well, the Social Security Expansion Act has a pretty clear answer. Right now, there's a cap on how much of your income gets taxed for Social Security. So if you make $1 million a year, you pay the exact same amount into the system as someone who makes, say, $160,000. This proposal changes that. It says we're going to start taxing again on all income over $250,000. Basically, it just asks the wealthiest people to pay into the system on all their earnings, just like most working folks already do. And get this, that one change wouldn't just pay for the increase, it would make Social Security financially sound for another 75 years.
And it's not just about a one-time boost either. These proposals also try to fix a problem that's been around for a long, long time, the annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA. Right now, it's calculated using a general inflation number, but let's be real. Seniors spend way more of their money on healthcare and housing, and the costs for those things have been going through the roof. So this proposal says, let's use a smarter formula, the CPIE, which is actually based on what seniors really spend their money on. This means that every year, the adjustment you get would actually keep up with the real cost you're facing.
So that brings us back to where we started with a question, but maybe a bigger one.
All these numbers, these budgets, all the details, what they're all really getting at is this. After you've worked your whole life, paid in, raised a family, what does a dignified, secure retirement really look like? What should it look like? The proposals we've gone over today, they offer one possible answer. It's a vision of a future where those impossible choices are off the table, replaced by stability, where all that anxiety finally gives way to a little peace of mind. And that's something worth thinking about.
Okay, so first things first. Why are we even talking about an idea this huge? Well, it's because it's trying to solve a really fundamental problem that's kind of baked into the Social Security system right now. A massive and frankly growing divide between the highest and lowest paid beneficiaries. I mean, just look at this. The scale of this gap is pretty staggering. On one end of the spectrum, you have some people getting as little as $50 a month. 50! And on the other end, the maximum benefit is over $5,000. That's not a gap, you know? That's a canyon. And it basically mirrors the same income inequality we see all across the economy.
And that massive gap has a very real, very human cost. This number right here, 11 million, that's how many seniors in this country are currently living below the federal poverty line. For so many of them, their Social Security check just isn't enough to feel secure. And this right here is the exact problem a flat benefit is trying to fix.
And you know, even if we look at the averages, the picture isn't all that great. The average retirement benefit is just under $2,000, and the average for disability, or SSDI, is even lower, just under $1,600. Now, that might sound okay to some, but when you factor in the crazy inflation we've all been dealing with, the actual buying power of that money is shrinking fast, and it leaves a lot of people on incredibly tight budgets.
So you've got a problem this big. How do you even begin to fix it? Well, the solution being proposed isn't some minor tweak. It's a complete overhaul. The whole idea is to move away from our current earnings-based system to something way simpler and, yeah, a lot more radical.
And here it is, the whole proposal in a single number, a flat, universal monthly benefit of about $2,200 for everyone. It wouldn't matter if you were a CEO or a part-time worker, or whether you're getting retirement or disability benefits. Everyone would get the same foundational payment. For millions of people, that would be an absolutely life-changing increase. So what would this actually do? It would fundamentally change what Social Security is. Right now, it works kind of like an earned pension, right? Your benefit is calculated with this complex formula based on your 35 highest earning years. A flat benefit system just tosses that out the window. It turns the program into a true social safety net, one that provides a uniform financial floor for absolutely everyone. The big question, of course, is how in the world could you get from our system today to that one? You can't just flip a switch overnight, that's for sure. The proposal gets that, and it lays out a very gradual, long-term plan for rebalancing the whole thing. Okay, so this is really the nuts and bolts of the plan. For people at the very top of the benefit scale, those annual cost of living adjustments, the COLAs, they would stop. Instead, their benefit might even be reduced by a tiny percentage each year. And that money would then be used to actively boost the benefits for people at the bottom. The idea is that over, say, 5, 10, maybe even 20 years, the two ends would slowly move toward each other until they meet at that middle point, that equilibrium, like the proposed $2,200. So where would all that money saved from the high-end benefits go? Well, there are a couple of ideas on the table. One option is to just redirect all of it to boost payments for lower-income folks, which would make that convergence happen faster. Another idea is to split it 50-50. Use half to raise the floor for those who need it most, and put the other half back into the Social Security Trust Fund itself. That could help with those long-term solvency problems we're always hearing about. Now, a change this dramatic isn't just about the numbers on a check. Not at all. It represents a really deep philosophical shift in how we think about the purpose of Social Security. And it actually has a lot in common with another big idea that's been gaining a lot of steam lately. And that idea is Guaranteed Basic Income, or GBI. You've probably heard about the pilot programs popping up all over the place. They're all based on a simple idea. Give a specific group of people a set amount of money every month, no strings attached. A flat Social Security benefit would basically turn the program into the largest GBI in the world, one that's focused on seniors and people with disabilities. And this really gets to the core of the change. We would be moving from a system that says you get back a benefit related to what you put in, to a system that says, as a member of this society, you are guaranteed a basic level of security. It's a fundamental move from rewarding the individual to supporting the collective.
So, as you can probably imagine, a proposal this transformative is controversial, to say the least. It kicks up a really fierce and fundamental debate about what's fair, what our responsibilities are to each other, and really the very nature of the social contract.
The main argument against it is captured perfectly by this quote. For a lot of higher income folks, Social Security isn't a welfare program. It's a pension they paid into their entire lives. They played by the rules, they paid more in taxes, and they planned their whole retirement around the promise of a higher benefit. To them, cutting that benefit feels like the government breaking a promise.
So the whole debate really boils down to this. On one side, you have people saying this is the most powerful tool we could ever imagine to fight poverty among the elderly and disabled. It creates a simple, fair safety net. But on the other side, critics are saying it's just fundamentally unfair to people who paid more in, and it pulls the rug out from under those who plan their lives based on the system we have now. It's a clash of two very, very different visions.
And that really leaves us with the ultimate question here. At the end of the day, what is Social Security for? Is its main purpose to reward a lifetime of work based on what you paid in? Or is it to guarantee that no senior or person with a disability has to live in poverty? This proposal really forces us to pick a side, and the answer to that question is going to define the future of retirement for generations.
What if your financial future was about to get a major, and I mean major boost? Well, today we're going to break down some really key proposals that could mean more security, more dignity, and just more peace of mind for millions of people. And it all starts with one number that could change everything.
Let's just put this number right out there, $2,400. Now, this isn't just some random figure we pulled out of thin air. It represents the potential extra income you could see in a single year from one of the key proposals we're going to talk about today.
So just take a second and really think about that. What would that mean for your budget, for your family, for your own well-being? That's really the big question we're unpacking today. How these numbers on a screen could translate into real, tangible improvements in your life.
Okay, so where could all this extra money actually come from? Well, the first big proposal on the table is basically a direct raise for your retirement. And the details, honestly, are pretty exciting.
The Social Security Expansion Act is proposing a really straightforward, across-the-board increase of $200. And that's not a one-time thing. That's $200 times every single month for all Social Security recipients. You do the math. That's the $2,400 a year we just saw. And you can really see the transformation on this chart. It shows the shift from a budget that's, super tight with maybe a tiny bit left over to one with some real breathing room. That jump right there, that represents the powerful change from just barely getting by to feeling genuinely more secure. Here's how the math breaks down for an average person. Right now, after all the essential bills are paid, you might have about $70 left. But with this increase, that leftover amount could jump all the way to $270. That's nearly 4 times the spending money each month, which gives you real choice and flexibility. So, where are these big ideas coming from? Let's take a quick look at the actual legislative blueprint that's aiming to strengthen financial security for millions. There are really 2 key proposals leading the charge here. First, as we mentioned, is the Social Security Expansion Act. That's the one with the potential $200 monthly raise. And the second one is the SSI Restoration Act, which focuses specifically on improving benefits and, restoring some dignity for folks who receive supplemental security income.
Now, for SSI recipients, this act proposes a monthly increase of $130. And the goal here is really specific. It's to raise the benefit up to 100% of the federal poverty level, which would be a much-needed lift.
And it's not just about the monthly check. The Act also wants to raise the amount of money you can have in savings without losing your benefits, all the way up to $10,000 for individuals. I mean, this is a huge deal for being able to build a small emergency fund and finally gain a little bit of security.
But let's be real. How do these numbers on a page actually translate to necessities in your home? Let's get into the real-world impact, because that's where these proposals truly come to life.
This quote, which is inspired by so many real stories, it just gets right to the heart of it. It's about transforming daily life, right? Moving away from that constant financial anxiety and toward the dignity of just being able to afford essentials like medicine and healthy food. This chart here gives us a great picture of what that new financial freedom could actually look like. It means being able to use your money not just to survive, but to actually thrive, to cover fresh groceries, get vital medications, and maybe even have enough to put into savings or go visit loved ones. And to put it in even more concrete terms, just think about what an extra $200 can actually buy. We're talking about tangible, everyday things that make a massive difference in your quality of life. It's not some abstract number, it's security you can actually hold. So, beyond direct benefit increases, there's another really powerful proposal out there to improve financial security. And this one is all about letting you keep more of the money you already have through tax relief. A proposal called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act introduces a new additional tax deduction, $6,000 for individuals over 65 and $12,000 for couples. Now, this would be on top of the deductions that already exist, and it directly lowers your taxable income. Plain and simple, it means you keep more of your own money. So, what does that actually mean for your wallet? Well, for a senior with a $30,000 annual income, these changes could translate into an estimated $1,250 in annual tax savings. That's over $100 back in your budget every single month. And the scale of this potential impact is just massive. If this passes, an estimated 88% of all Social Security recipients could owe zero federal tax on their benefits. Let that sink in. Zero. That is a true game changer. So, when we put all of these pieces together, the proposed benefit increases and the potential tax relief, we start to see a really clear path forward. It's a path toward a future with greater financial dignity and real security for everyone. And if you're sitting there wondering, okay, but can these proposals actually become reality? Just consider this. The Social Security Fairness Act recently became law. This isn't a proposal anymore. It's a concrete victory that has already ended unfair benefit reductions for 3.2 million public servants. And the impact is real, and it's immediate. Thanks to this new law, the people affected are seeing their monthly benefits go up by an average of $360 to $450. This just proves that positive, meaningful change absolutely can and does happen. So let's just quickly recap the path to security that we've explored today. It all starts with proposals for direct, significant benefit increases. Those increases then translate into a real-world impact on necessities. Then, that security could be strengthened even more by tax relief. And all of these steps are leading toward one clear goal: a more secure and dignified future for you. And that really brings us to our final thought. With these potential improvements on the horizon, the question becomes a personal one. What would that future look like for you? How would having greater financial security actually change your life?
Today, we're diving into some really big proposals that could change the monthly benefits for millions of people who receive Supplemental Security Income, or SSI.
All right, let's start with this number. For 2025, the absolute maximum federal SSI benefit for a single person is $967 a month. That's the ceiling, the most anyone can get from the program each month.
And that brings us to the big question, right? With the cost of everything these days, rent, food, you name it, a lot of people are asking if that amount is really enough to get by.
So to really get what these proposals are all about, we first have to understand the problem they're trying to fix. And it really all comes down to a growing financial gap between SSI benefits and the official poverty level.
It's interesting. When this program was created more than 50 years ago, the whole point was to act as a safety net, to keep people right at the federal poverty line. But over the decades, well, it's fallen behind.
And this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the max SSI benefit at $967. On the other, the 2025 federal poverty line, which is $1,304. You can literally see the gap right there. And that difference comes out to $337. Every single month. That's the shortfall, and that number is at the absolute heart of this whole debate. You can really feel the urgency in this quote from our source material. I mean, that's pretty powerful language, and it just shows how strongly some people feel that the system needs to be modernized to close that gap.
Okay, so we've seen the problem. Now, what are the proposed solutions? Well, the first big one is a piece of legislation aimed squarely at closing that financial gap we just looked at.
It's called the SSI Restoration Act. You can basically think of it as a big package of updates trying to modernize parts of the program that, frankly, haven't been touched in decades.
The single biggest, most significant change in this act would be to raise the maximum monthly benefit to match the federal poverty line. The goal is to get the program back to doing what it was originally intended to do.
So remember that $337 gap? This would close it. For someone getting the maximum benefit, this would mean a direct increase of $337 a month, bringing their total from $967 up to that